because I feel like, again, it's like we can't compete at the Marvel or DC level or some of these other ones. So it's like, but if we kind of unite in some capacity, in not in an official way, but just a loosely affiliated, like, boom, it's like, let's all get behind this project this month. Let's go all get behind that project, and it might help a little.
I completely agree, and that's great words of wisdom for all of us.
Here.
Because I think that's how the indies will come up, and I do feel like right now it's prime for that. So, Joe, thank you so much again. We will definitely do another email blast for your Zero Ghost, for your Lady Mechanica
All right.
Kickstarter, and don't leave the studio until it's fully uploaded. I think we lost Jay's recording, so we want to make sure we get your recording. So
how do I?
I'm just gonna move you off stage, and then we could just leave it on. Thank you. All right.
Thanks,
so it was good to see Joe. Joe's awesome. So with that said, let's bring our next guest, Bronze Age. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Happy launch day, everybody.
Happy launch day.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Exciting.
What's super meaningful is you were there for the first one. This is our second.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a few familiar faces from that initial launch up there as well, too. So that's awesome to see. I'm just excited. I think this is great. I can't wait to see another project from 247 come out. Really excited to see what the launch of this one looks like. So I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. No, glad you're joining. So why don't you, for our audience, like who may not be familiar with your work, share a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So, a few years ago, I got into the whole YouTube thing during the pandemic. I needed some way to kind of have a social outlet and to sort of get out there in the world and communicate with people. I've been meaning to start a YouTube channel, and it was really a matter of like what topic. And one of the things I wanted to learn how to do was editing and kind of learn how to do all that kind of search engine optimization and social media work and all that. So I thought, hey, comic books have a lot of I'm going to be able to do a lot of those things with comic books. It's a passion of mine. So I started a YouTube channel that focused on comic books and my journey in becoming a returning collector, because I got out of it when my daughter was born and kind of got back into it. And I kind of got into the collecting more expensive comic books, and instead of just having a huge monthly pull list, I was actually like trying to focus on a collection and send in some of my childhood comic books for grading at CGC and do those sorts of things. And I wanted people to follow along. And as time went on, I kind of evolved the channel, and I found specific interests and niches that my viewers were enjoying. And that was a huge part of my focus, is I wanted to focus on what my viewers were doing. So I started doing a lot of speculation content and content centered around basically what is a smart investment and what isn't a smart investment. And from there, I actually started doing some charity work. So I started doing a charity called Heroes for Heroes that we do annually on Veterans Day. All the proceeds from that go to Mission 22 to help prevent veteran suicide. So that's kind of been my primary focus over the last couple of years. We're getting ready to do the third year of that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I've been up to over here on YouTube.
Yeah, I love it. And I think we had the opportunity to contribute some to Heroes for Heroes as well. Do you give us a little bit more background on that, and why you started and kind of how it all came together, and how other, I guess, comic book companies have been able to contribute?
Yeah, so really the initial, so some people have asked, they wonder if I'm a veteran, and the truth is I'm not. I really wanted to join at one point in my life. I had some health issues and some other stuff that came up that kind of prevented me from joining the service when I was at kind of an age appropriate to do that. So I ended up focusing on my career instead. But later on in my career, I started working with a lot of veterans. Just, I guess there's just a lot of veterans out there. I was paying more attention. And I really noticed that veterans, when you got to know them, they had a lot of unique struggles. And they also get more or less ignored by society in some ways. And especially, men have a lot of mental health problems in this country that I think get ignored pretty often anyway. Most veterans are men. There's a lot of crossover there. Most veterans have mental health issues, especially those that have seen service like in active combat and those types of situations. And I had the pleasure of meeting some of these people and getting to learn their stories, and it really affected me. It really touched me. I always say maybe there's a little bit of guilt involved for not joining and being part of that. So when I was looking for a cause to kind of work towards, I've done a few charities, but this is the one that's kind of stuck. And it was because of all the comic book fans out there that are veterans. There's so many, and whether they're just readers, whether they're YouTubers, whether they're social media content creators or comic book creators themselves, there's a lot of them out there. So seeing that kind of push and that passion helped me decide that that's something that I wanted to work towards. And then on top of that, I had specifically a lot of veteran people in the community that supported this cause, Mission 22. There's some wonderful veterans charities out there. There's some veterans charities out there that maybe aren't as well viewed by veterans. And this is one that pretty much universally got the stamp of approval because they are, 100% of their efforts are going to actually helping veterans and their families deal with mental health problems. And I think that's something that all veterans can kind of get behind is a universal need that they have. And they have a really good track record of being transparent and a really good track record of just outreach, essentially. And so because of that, that was just a cause that really gravitated to me. So yeah, we've had a lot of people in the community, like comic book companies like 247 Comics. We've had Dynamite Comics, Overstreet have gotten behind this cause in years past. Tons of comic book creators as well. As I go around to cons, a lot of times it'd be fun to have that experience where I'm just talking to somebody and being a fan, but because I'm trying to do something special here, I also am having that conversation. Hey, I'm a YouTuber. I'd love to have you come on the channel and talk about this, but really the reason why is because I want to support this charity. And so, I've had that conversation with people like Jim Shooter and Jim Starlin and, Mark Bagley and Frank Cho, and just all these wonderful people, right? And so that's kind of my conversation that I have with them. And so many of these people have gotten on board and donated. Like, we had, Sean's going to be on the show later, Sean Chen. You guys were awesome enough to donate a Wolverine piece that he did, as well as some other art too, I might add. And that piece was just amazing. And I think Rob, who's going to be on the show later, won that piece, and he actually put it back up for auction. So we won money twice off that. I think we ended up raising $800 for Mission 22 off that one piece alone, let alone all the other pieces you guys donated. So, just absolutely a wonderful thing to see people giving for this cause. And yeah, it's just something I'm excited to be a part of.
Awesome. And, I want to bring the panel back because it's been, just hearing about the good people of the community. I definitely want our audience to hear what you've been doing as well. And I think the more people that hear about what you're doing and the more comic industry individuals that can contribute, I think the better, because I do know the veteran community are big consumers of comics as well.
Absolutely.
So Bronze, I don't think you had a chance to read Zero Ghosts, but would love to get your reactions to it. The creator team is here, so I know you're a great interviewer as a YouTuber. Any questions for the guys? Any responses? Any thoughts initially?
So I'll just say that, so I read the first issue and I read about half of the second issue. And for the audience, I'll try to keep it, pretty spoiler free because I know everybody wants to get a chance to enjoy this. Not everybody's had the chance to read it yet, of course. That's going to come later after you support the Kickstarter. But I will say I really enjoyed it. I was getting a lot of I love urban fantasy, and I was getting some urban fantasy vibes from this that I really enjoyed, or almost like cyberpunk, but without the cyber and more of a mystical sort of slant instead of the cyber. So mystical punk. I don't know if that's a genre yet, but maybe you guys are pioneering it. And so I really was enjoying the action. I was enjoying the world building, especially in the first issue. There's a lot of world building, so I thought that was really cool. I'm somebody who really likes. I think I've been in and out on the stream. I think I heard John Wick you mentioned earlier. There's kind of that world building that happens in John Wick where you're like, what's the deal with these coins? What's the deal with this hotel? Why does everybody seem to know each other? There's a little bit of that going on with this as well. Not an exactly one-to-one comparison there, but that type of world building where you're interested to learn more about what is actually happening behind the scenes and how these different groups are kind of connected or what their origins are. So I was really excited about that. I was really curious when it comes to all that world building, what kind of outline or layout Is this something that you just took a lot of time thinking about? Was it something that took a lot of time on the back end, like building like a Bible of the world of what everything is going to look like? How was that process for you guys?
There's a fairly lengthy Bible. It actually didn't take that long to write, which is usually a good sign. So there's a thing that I quote fairly often, and I wish I knew who to attribute it to, but it was basically like my thoughts about world building is somebody once said the job of a science fiction writer in particular is not to anticipate cars, it's to anticipate traffic jams, right? Which is looking at like what the second and third and fourth order effects of a thing would be. So like I kind of started from this base premise of like, all right, in urban fantasy, which is also an influence, like there's always this, well, not always, but there's very often this presupposition that magic exists, but people don't know about it, right? It's been kept secret. So I was like thinking about it, I'm like, all right, magic is secret, so the world superficially resembles our own. Well, who's good at keeping secrets? It's like criminals. It's like, so what if these people were just crime families? And I started, extrapolating out from there and kind of doing. It's one of the things that, like, if we get to do kind of sequels and expansions, it would be fun because within the world building documents, we actually have information about what the various families actually do and how they got where they got and that kind of stuff. And there's stuff that's like kind of implied in the books that like you don't see a lot of. Like, for instance, the Canes, the Kane family are descended from British people that had colonized Hong Kong. They were part of that. So they are ethnically Chinese mostly at this point, but that's where they got the name from. But also, like, their magic basically goes around, is kind of oriented around stealing from other people. It's kind of the theft. So there's a little bit of a colonialism commentary there, but there's also like how their family history relates to the magic they use and stuff. And of course, so we built that out for all of the families and some of how the world operates otherwise. Because like Kira's mom is an Italian witch, so there's a little bit about that, and then how the Death Angels work and like what their role is and all that kind of stuff. So there is, fairly elaborate stuff. Like the trick is not to overwhelm the reader with it. You want to iceberg that shit so that they're getting enough to know that there's more to get, but not so much that you're sinking the Titanic to really stretch that metaphor. So
sure. Nice. No, that was really cool. I really enjoyed seeing that, because I think that's one of those things where, especially when you're getting into a new story, a new world, a new IP, you could say, it is nice to get teases of what wants to keep you reading and keep you learning about that world. But also, in a comic book, you only have so many pages, right? So you want to get into that action. You want to get into delivering a little bit of something for everybody, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say. So there was a really good balance of that, especially in the first issue. And I got to, there's kind of I guess sort of the big reveal halfway through the second issue that I got to, and it was fun seeing that as well. It did make me wonder, are there any inspirations that you specifically drew from for this story? Because I mean, I think I saw some connections of things that like, oh, I think I see some pieces of these that are kind of mixed in here. You've probably already talked about this a million times today, as people have asked that, but I am just curious, is there any specific inspirations that you really wanted to touch upon, or is it just sort of maybe loose amalgamation?
Lots of stuff. Like, everything is kind of a stew, but like, the more obvious ones is like, it was 90s kind of Hong Kong action movies and 80s and 90s, like John Woo movies in particular, but also some other directors. And John Wick was an influence. Spawn from the comic book was actually is part of the DNA of that. As are Witchblade in the Darkness. There's some aspects I was drawing from those. Oddly enough, there's some Brandon Sanderson in there, of all people, who does not write very zero ghosty books, but I quite like his stuff. So there's some of that in there. There is a little bit of like cyberpunky kind of stuff, particularly in sort of the visuals that I had in mind for it, just in terms of the colors and stuff, which is, it's not so much that it's cyberpunk per se, but like I was sort of drawing from the same stuff that like Blade Runner was drawing from in terms of like how Hong Kong and Tokyo look at night. They always had this very specific like neon look in photos and stuff that I always thought was fascinating and kind of wanted to get that across. So yeah, a lot of stuff. There's probably stuff that I have forgotten. I would have, if I was reading the book, I could probably start pinpointing like, yeah, this is from, I stole this from X thing. Like it's, you know, most of it is kind of like grabbing a whole bunch of inspiration from a bunch of different places and then trying to set up the right characters in it so that it actually plays out interestingly.
Right on. Yeah, because that's one of the things, like you mentioned a couple stories there that I think this is kind of in the overall summary, so I don't think it's much of a spoiler, but there is this concept of what your power can cost you. I'll put it that way, that we've seen in some other stories. And I really am fascinated with that concept because there's always, you have characters that have unlimited power or almost unlimited power. You're Superman or whatever, right? And as long as they get charged by the sun, in Superman's case, he's good to go. But some characters, there's a high cost to using those abilities. And so as a writer, is there always like this pressure to rein in the use of their powers? Or do you want to like kind of go full throttle and put them up against that boundary where it might cost them too much? You know, is that kind of a dangerous game to start playing? Because then you wonder like, okay, how much power, how much force is this going to cost this person if I have to do this amazing, huge thing?
No, it's hard. So it's one of those things is, so if you go back to the first few issues of Spawn, and I couldn't tell you exactly like when the conceit was abandoned, but it does not last real long. So in the original few issues of Spawn, Spawn had a finite amount of power, right?
Yeah.
Like, and the deal with Spawn, and explicitly from McFarlane talking about it before Spawn was out, was the idea was, he was a character who was capable of Superman level feats, but had a reason to be Batman, like, which was that he only had so much power and the stuff would do various powers. What I also rapidly ran into is that the logistics of that from a writing standpoint are really like hard to make work. Like, and you see that as you go throughout the thing. So it is one of those things where like the realities of writing a thing versus like what your preferences are in a storyteller sometimes conflict. So like whenever I do stuff with magic, like there are two approaches to magic, which actually, I don't know if Mary, who had commented, might appreciate this. Like Brandon Sanderson actually has a talk that's on YouTube somewhere about, you can basically broadly put magic into like two categories, which is one, I wish I could remember the terminology that he uses, but the basic difference is there's kind of Lord of the Rings magic, and then there's like Dresden Files magic, which is Lord of the Rings magic is kind of incomprehensible and can sort of do anything, and it's basically miracles from God. Like, so there's that approach to magic, which I like. But then there's the other, like, where it is a quantifiable science, basically, like just a science by another name. And you can do one or the other of those. You probably shouldn't do both. And that is kind of how it is with powerful characters. Like, you kind of need to pick a lane. Like, if you want to write a character that is fundamentally omnipotent, omnipotent's probably the wrong word, but like, when you're writing a Superman story, and I have written a Superman story, so I can say this with some authority, the trick is not whether Superman has enough power. It's the limits of what Superman can do with the power that he has, right? Like, so, and at least my personal philosophy on it is Superman, like, in particular, like, my take on it was the tragedy of Superman, not that he's a tragic character, is that Superman can save anyone, but he can't save everyone, and he knows that. And that would be the hardest part about being Superman. So when you have those characters, the challenge becomes much more about the psychological and emotional obstacles that they're facing and that kind of stuff. And that's fine. Like, it's one of those things that, like, that is how a lot of fiction rolls. Like, I don't think there's ever really any question that in the end, James Bond is going to win in a James Bond story, because that's just how James Bond stories go. Like, you're there for the journey and that kind of stuff. The flip side of that is you have characters like, Kira and stuff who are a lot more vulnerable, and you have magic. If you've instituted magic in a world, I think one of the things, man, this is a long ramble, that you need to think about is why, if magic is limited, why is it limited, right? Like, what is the cost of doing magic? And there should be a cost, or your world should look very different. Like, if magic is essentially free, like you can do whatever you want with it just based on skill, that is different compared to, oh, you only have X amount of energy in your body, and when you're done with it, you're dead. Both are totally valid ways of telling a story. They're just different. So with Kira and with the magic in this, we were trying for building in some of the limitations of what you could and couldn't do with it. Yeah, logistically, it's a huge fucking pain in the ass. Like I get why it didn't last very long in Spawn, because it's hard. Yeah. That's why.
Although I thought it was funny as you mentioned the powers and bronze. That was a great question because we had to think a lot about powers recently because we are actually offering these metal collectible cards as like a stretch goal. And basically, if you guys are familiar with trading cards, this is our version. So each of the characters will have their own metal cards. And so anywhere that's kind of gray, you'll see is metal. We actually have a cool video of it from the manufacturer that we would love to show at some point. But, Justin had to go through and literally think about their intelligence, strength, speed, durability, and magic. So any thoughts run through your mind, Justin, as you were kind of filling out the form for these cards?
Yeah, no, that is a rock solid segue, by the way. Both right from the conversation and bronze, metal, So, yeah, no, it's funny. I mostly, it wasn't hard because the way I think about things translates easily to that kind of stuff. But I did have to think about how people were going to interpret the scale, which this is overthinking. I did not need to give it this much thought because it's so if I say a character has the scale goes from 1 to 10, and then you say a character has 5 intelligence, there are various ways to interpret that because for instance, you might be interpreted oh, a character with an intelligence of 5 is an idiot. But no, if the top end of the scale is 10, right, and that's a 200 IQ, 5 would actually be right in the middle, right? That's an average. Yeah. But the question is, that's how I would think about it. Is that how people reading it would think about it? So I had to give that some thought and all that kind of stuff. And Carl and I discussed that about some of the ratings for the characters. And it's no, some of them are they are maxed out. They are in their domain essentially unbeatable on purpose. Which is that. And then and some of them scales don't even apply. You can't evaluate Shrike. Shrike's powers do not work that way, and nor does his intelligence and that kind of stuff. Shrike is something that humans cannot understand, stuffing himself into a form that more or less makes sense to us. So his stats just there's no application for it. It's like trying to have stats for Galactus. It's not going to happen.
All right, awesome. So we got a few more minutes with bronze. Why don't we take a question for the audience? Because I think this will be a fun one. So PokeCon said he's just getting back into comics after 13 years. Welcome. What are some of good series to get into, guys? Let's share.
Mine.
Wow.
Zero Ghost.
There you go.
Top of the list.
Number 2, Evermind.
What have I really liked lately?
Yep.
Monstrous is really good. Deadly Class is dope for something very different. As is Black Science, actually, speaking of Remender. Invincible, if you like kind of classic-y superhero stuff with a modern sort of twist, Invincible is a good shout. The Luther Strode series, if you like blood and violence, I realize I wrote it, but it's got Trad Moore on art, and you can't go wrong with Trad, so...
You took those words out of my mouth. Luther Strode was one. Sanity is another one.
I was just going to say it's number 3.
Number 3 up there, so thank you for that. And then I would also say King of Spies, which is one of my personal favorites. I think Sarah's too.
Man,
do
I have not read that yet. And it's
Really
sad because Mateo's a buddy, but like you get so busy doing comics, you don't read them as fast. I have King of Spies; it's in the next room, but like, have I read it yet? So
yeah, that's a good one. Do a Powerbomb, super heartwarming. I thought it was a great a short narrative. I love stuff that are in like 6 to 7 or 8 chapters. But the longer one, if you want one, I would say East of West is a great series.
Oh yeah.
Hickman.
I'm almost
I'm actually. This is a segue from the question, but speaking of Nick Dragata, I'm actually interested in Absolute Batman, which I might not have been otherwise. But I was like, I don't know, Nick Dragata doing ridiculously giant Jack Reacher Batman is kind of interesting. So I'll at least check out the first issue.
Awesome. So, Bronze, anything else to we could help promote or get the word out about? Really appreciate your time and great question.
No, absolutely. It's just really great to be here, hanging out with some awesome people. I love getting a chance to talk about Heroes for Heroes. We are going to be doing some more announcements. We just had the official Mission 22 donation page launch yesterday. Some things got tweaked in the formatting, so we're gonna change that up. That'll take place on November 11th, Veterans Day, which is going to be just an awesome day. If anybody, I guess if you're out there, anybody who does want to help or contribute in any kind of way, shape, or form, and that could be making sure you get added to social media accounts so that you can share links as we post them and share artwork that we're going to have and comic books. Hey, that's awesome. I'd appreciate that. You can follow me on Instagram. From there, you can join my Discord server where I have a whole channel dedicated to the Heroes for Heroes initiative for Mission 22. Other than that, just hanging out, doing the YouTube thing. Every Monday we have Best Coast Comics, myself and Biggie McFly, the comic book guy. We've had wonderful guests like, this guy named Mickey. Some people call him Swagglehouse. He's been on there before. We've had some other wonderful guests on there too. And we really like covering the news of comic books and doing, just anything comic book related. So I'm sure on Monday's show, we'll be talking about this Kickstarter on there because that's something we love to highlight, our fantastic Kickstarters and crowdfunding campaigns. This is one we're definitely going to talk about there on Monday.
Thank you so much. We super appreciate it, Bronze. Thank you for your time, and we're here for you. And let's talk more about how we can help with your initiatives for the veterans. It's a great cause.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Is it cool if I hang out for a little bit longer, or do I?
You can totally hang out as long as you want. So I was gonna say you could either now hang out, join us for this next guest, which is a good friend of mine, and up to you. So thanks for being part of this, and I'm gonna add Iranga D to the stage. What's up, Iranga?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Oh man,
we're about halfway through this thing. Man, you guys are like gluttons for punishment, dude.
Yeah, we have 29 days left, so we're almost there.
Almost there, on our way. So
I feel like I'm like joining the party when everyone's already finished the beer. They're all like just kind of falling asleep. It's good job, man. Yeah, good job, everyone.
Oh, wow. Thank you, man. Look, we're at 13333, so it's a good number. It's with 70 backers. So thank you all the backers who's been part of this so far. I just want to shout out to all the day one backers. Obviously, you'll be rewarded. We have basically forever thank yous. We have a thank you list that we showed early on in our stream. Vivi also was awesome enough to give us a artist edition that for the first 300 backers will also receive for free. And then you get to pick original comic art if you back on the first day, either tier 5 or 6. And we showed some of those art today. So please watch the replay so you can see what the art pieces that are available that Brian basically pulled out of his library for us to go over. But with that said, I'd love to welcome Iranga D, our special guest right now. And he is, I know you from collecting. And so art collecting was a big thing. But then I have to say, when he opened up his commission list, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. Being a friend, I was like, yo, man, can you do my usual prop of like Batman versus Azrael in front of a church? And guys, look at what he did, dude. He like blew my mind with this very classic Azrael jumping in bat. So Aranga, the floor is yours. I'm gonna move you kind of to the floor, and then have you share more about your journey, who you are, and what you've done, and what you're working on.
Yeah, it's funny, like I come on and like you've had guys who've been in the industry for 20, 30 years, and this should be fairly short, I think. I basically started out as an art collector, and funnily enough, those two kind of dovetailed. In 2019, I started buying art and commissioning artists. I guess we'll dial it back like a little further. I grew up overseas, right? So I was born in Sri Lanka. We lived in Sri Lanka till I was 5. My family moved to the Middle East when I was 5, and I grew up in Dubai. Moved to the US when I was 18. So I read comics overseas. I was always drawing as a kid, pretty much daily. And then when I moved to the US to go to college, that kind of all fell by the wayside, man. I was by myself. The standard comic stuff. You're getting in trouble doing your thing. So drawing just kind of fell by the wayside. Fast forward to 2019, 2020, and the pandemic hit. And, I was like, all right, I had nothing to do. We were on lockdown. I'm going to start just kind of re-engaging with drawing, and I created like an Instagram account and put my stuff out there, and one person suddenly reached out and asked me for a commission, which was kind of mind-blowing, and I did this commission. This guy shared it on one of these local Facebook sites where it's for comic art collectors, and a few other people reached out from that, and just got the ball rolling. And I found myself like with my hands full kind of doing commissions and stuff, and then a writer reached out to me and asked if I'd like to do a cover for their book, and I was, yeah, sure, why not? And that led to other opportunities. And last year was the 25th anniversary of Frank Miller's 300, and for some reason, dumb luck, I got to do one of the variant covers for that. So over the last 2 to 3 years, I've worked with Dynamite, Scout Comics, Dark Horse, and a ton of indie creators doing covers for their Kickstarter books and stuff like that. So that's me. I know, yeah, I collect art too.
Yeah, and you did an amazing job on this 300 cover. I love it.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. It's interesting because a lot of the cover work I've done has been, that negative space, just bold images, that kind of stuff, which is very different from what I do for commission work. So two different approaches, and it seems like when it comes to covers, a lot of people, that's kind of what they request of me.
Awesome. So yeah, with that said, Ranga, want to open up to the panel. You had a chance to also read Zero Ghost yourself. Any thoughts or feedback? Any initial reactions with the creator team here?
Yeah, I mean, I got back to you like almost instantly once I read that ash can. Right, it was I was blown away. I like page 1. I mean, it kind of carries you. I actually had Will, your use of Reds, man. Is that like just your jam? Because there's the Reds in this book. I guess you spoke earlier about how the paper quality kind of contributes to that as well, kind of fulfilling your vision. And it's not just blood. I'm not just talking about the blood. It's the neons of the city, the lighting in rooms, etc. It just really pops, man. Is that did you settle on early that Red's gonna be like one of the running themes in this book?
Yeah, I'd say so. Absolutely. I'd say red is definitely a predominant color throughout the book. Whether it be magic, whether it be Shrike, whether it be mood or atmosphere, I try to incorporate that in as much of the book as possible.
Yeah, right on.
As series as possible.
Yeah, it's great, man. It's very rare that the first thing I notice in a comic book is the coloring. No disrespect to Brian, but like that was the first thing that kind of popped out to me. I was like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "All right, well, it's really great." Brian, real quick for you, man. I mean, I love the art, like everything about it. I was gushing to Call about how much I love the art on this book. Just real quick, like, how long did it take you when you were working on the book? Like issue 1, I guess you didn't have a way of knowing what the final product or what the finished product would look like. But how long into the process did you get where you knew what Will was going to do with the colors? And did that affect at all, like, how you were laying your pages out or how you detailed it, whether you overly detailed or under detailed something?
I don't think we saw colored pages for a while. It was me just doing the line art for quite a while. But for me specifically, I'm assuming maybe issue 3 was when I myself started to get comfortable with the way I was drawing the characters. It takes a while because they're new. These characters are new to everyone. So just how they move, how they express themselves and all that, like finding the attitude for our characters takes a while. And even within that, you're trying to make consistencies with the way they look, consistencies with the costume, things like that. Sometimes things that work with just the character design don't work when they're moving. And so you're kind of finding things along the way. But once Will's colors started coming in, it was like, holy crap, we were just blown away. And I feel lucky that he's on it, and I feel excited that our readers are going to see what he's capable of. Because as good as the series starts, his colors get exponentially better with each issue. So if you think this stuff is good now, you should hang on and wait till you see the next arc. It's stunning.
You guys got great synergy there, man. It's terrific.
Yeah,
issue 3, I started hitting my groove with the colors as well. Like issue 1, I think that applied more for me. Like I didn't really know what I was kind of doing at first with issue 1. Like I think even with issue 1, I kind of went back and redid some things that I kind of implemented in later issues, and just like implemented them in issue 1. So much like Brian had said, I kind of didn't get the groove of it until about issue 3, and then I think that's the point where I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I was like really comfortable with the neons of the city and all that stuff. It was all starting to click at that point.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a gorgeous looking book, man. I was talking to Carl about it, and you guys have a hit on your hands. It's kind of easy to see. Justin, man, big fan of Luther Strode, dude. Yeah, huge fan. So the storyline here, man, everything about it, when you can communicate everything you can in that ash can, and it's like issue 1, and I was already sold. I was like, where's the rest of this book? Yeah, it really kicks ass. Just quick question for you, right? And I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I've been fortunate to see the first 3 books, to read the first 3 issues, right? Did you make a conscious choice with some of the secondary characters and the villains to not outright name them when they were introduced?
Yes. Yeah, that's by design. They should all get named over the course of the book. But like I'm not.
You got 3 issues, dude.
I do. I am not a huge fan of here's this character and like throw out their name right away. Like some of that is an intentional bit of like kind of mystery building and that sort of stuff. So that was an intentional choice. I am capable of fucking that up accidentally, but in this case it was intentional.
No, right on. I started noticing that when I was talking to Carl about some of the characters that really kind of appealed to me. And I was like, why don't I know this character's name? Like, how did I miss it? And I'd go back and I'd like parse through the whole book to see if there was something I missed where they were named, and they weren't. So I'd be like, big guy with the mohawk. That's kind of.
Yep.
There you go.
They do all have names. I will say that they do actually all have names. So
right on.
Yeah, Bao's probably one of my personal
I'm not
favorite
100%
characters.
sure I can pronounce properly, but like they were all researched. So
Right on. Hey, also, massive shout out to you for including a group of brown Asians in the book with the rotation.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm glad
It's like,
somebody
hey, we take up some space in Asia.
yeah. No, that I mean, obviously that was an intentional choice, but I was like, I wonder if anybody's going to actually say anything about that at any point. It was interesting whether I'm glad that came across. So
Yeah. In fact, when I think Justin brought it up, I validated it because I was telling him how in Hong Kong, my neighbors were from India, and then I remember the first exposure was we were coming down the elevator together, and then I heard some kid speak Cantonese like super fluently to his mother. Mother responded, I turned around, and they're Indian, and I was like, oh wow, I speak fluent Cantonese, and we grew up together, and so I validated. It's like, yeah, there's a brown population in Hong Kong as well. So
Right, like Hong Kong, I think Malaysia,
Yeah.
Singapore, like they've got a fairly nice mix of the browns in there.
there
Yeah.
we go. So I mean,
Yeah,
go for it.
We wanted to bring that in, and that's part of that is just like a little bit of it is me thinking about the fact that I got a lot of friends who are from like Europe and like Britain and the UK, and their use of the term Asian is much different than the US version of the word Asian, and I got to thinking about that. I was like, and I knew that Hong Kong had, a significant like East Asian population, to use what Americans would probably go with. And I was like, I'm gonna actually include some people in here who are from places that are, not just of like Chinese descent, in with this. So
Listen, man, it was wild. It was wild to me when I moved to the US. Because it's the same thing for me. Like when we refer to Asians, just refer to like everyone from the continent of Asia, right? That was like Middle Easterners, Iranians, even parts of Russia for that matter. So we just kind of referred to it that way. And when we said Asian, it was this thing. When I had to start filling out HR forms for like race, like, and I'd fill out Asian, and like the HR rep would be like, I'd be like, no, it's right. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you think about it. Like, I didn't know. I used to always say I didn't know I was Asian until I got here because growing up in Hong Kong, even though my neighbor was Indian at the time, it didn't really like surprise me. He just spoke Cantonese. His parents spoke Cantonese. And that was that. But as an adult, when I think back, and I was like, oh yeah, like they were Indian. But at the time, I didn't really think about that. And so it's really interesting how I think when it comes to race, it is a thing in America, while in Asia, you're just another human being, So it's really interesting.
It's definitely.
I get a little exposure to that from things like my one good friend Ariella is from Indonesia, but she's ethnically Chinese, right? And like in Indonesia, that's a thing. There's a cultural thing going on with that I'm not going to get into, but like it got me thinking about like just a lot more about like American views of culturality and that kind of stuff. And since we were doing a city that's kind of Hong Kong, that I wanted to like make that more reflective of what cities are actually like. Sorry, my cat is being a maniac. But yeah, so I'm glad that came across. That actually makes me happy, man. I'm glad you noticed that. So
yeah, absolutely, right off the bat, man. Yeah,
it's definitely like a lot of media. There's a certain kind of optics that people sort of like initially like think about whenever you're describing a thing. And even for me, like I'm half Filipino, I'm half Asian, but I don't ever fit sort of the, if there's like let's talk about Filipino people in comic books. It's like, I don't fit the optics of what I think someone who's learning about that wants to, see or hear about. So it's kind of cool when you have like, oh yeah, this is just like a national Chinese, but ethnically Indian, in a book or something. So it's cool to see those types of things.
Right, it's pretty cool, and it's a cool little like kind of attention to detail, like specifically when you're talking to a locale that you're basing off of a place as, cosmopolitan as Hong Kong is, and how ethnically diverse it is. That you could have chosen the easy route, you didn't have to have that, but it was pretty cool. I dug it.
Thanks. Yeah, that's also one of those things that like I tried to. It's funny. There's a word I can't pronounce, so I won't use it. But one of the things I was thinking about also in regards to that is that, like, in regards to how these families operate, like, some of that stuff actually functions like it doesn't. We don't hugely get into it in the book for various reasons, but like the fact that, like, you know, the one crime family is a different ethnicity than some of the others is like that is relevant in the backstory in some ways, as is, like, if you were here when I was talking to Bronze about like the Kane family name and that kind of stuff, like like some of that I tried to give that some thought and care, like about the kind of world that I was building.
Yeah, there was a question earlier for Justin. It says, are the 5 families kind of callback to the tribes of the mafias?
Yes, they are actually specifically the mafia. They don't necessarily operate with the mafia. In terms of their operation, I kind of was codging together a few different things. So if you want to get really into the weeds looking at it, each of the 5 families, like, kind of behind the scenes, you don't see enough of this for it to matter in the books because the story is about Kira. But I was basing what they were doing on various kinds of organized crime in different cultures. So they're not. So, like, the Kane family bears more resemblance to mafia style family, whereas, like, the LKF is based on like a triad thing, and there's some stuff from, like, the Yakuza is sort of blended in there and stuff. It's not meant to be a literal thing, like they are a Yakuza, but I was trying to think if I had to do more with these families, like, in the world, like, how would they be different from each other, and, like, what would the frictions be between them, right? And so some of that is actually, as I mentioned, some of that is ethnic and historical. Some of it is cultural, like, and some of it is just how the families operate. Like, so Long Long's organization, for instance, operates very differently than Gui's operation does, right? Like, and like, Gui's is like a very traditionalist sort of thing, whereas the LKF is a lot more like punk rock and is based on a different kind of, like, crime tradition, for lack of a better term. So, but the overall, there being 5 families, that is specifically an American Mafia call out. So
It's awesome. So with that said, I mean, we have a lot of fans from Bronze in the chat. So thanks for joining, guys. And then also George, our buddy, Iranga, and my buddy in the art scene, is coming in to say hi. So thanks for coming in, George. I was thinking about you and Kavi today because there's a ton of, like, conversations about art and music this morning, because it started with Manic saying how he likes to listen to metal when he draws. And so, Iranga, what do you like to listen to? I thought it's kind of an interesting thing where all the artists was like, oh, I get inspired music. And Brian as well, right? You guys were talking about that. We are at 13.5 as well. So congratulations, guys, with that. But,
congratulations.
Back to that question, music and art.
What's funny is I used to listen to, when I was younger, it was always music when I was drawing, right? So Guns N' Roses, to age myself. But these days when I draw, I have The Office on a loop and I have Parks and Rec on a loop. So I'll swivel to an entire season of The Office, and then The Office ends, and then I'll start Parks and Rec and go through, like, the entire series, like all the seasons, and then back to The Office, just because I don't have to pay attention to anything. Like, the rhythm of the show, you know, is just right to where I know when, like, a part that I really love is coming up, just from the cadence of what I'm listening to, but I don't have to pay attention to it. And then when I go, you know, that's upstairs when I'm drawing in my studio, and then, like, after 5 o'clock when I go downstairs, and, like, my wife and I are sitting and we'll have dinner, and I have an art board downstairs, so I'll have a lap board, so I'll draw on my lap board. Then my wife starts watching true crime shit, so that's just constantly it's true crime stuff. Yeah, which apparently, like, if you listen to it, the only people that ever get murdered in the universe are, like, people who are, like, absolute angels. Everyone loved them. Like, no scumbags ever get murdered. Like, whenever they interview the people that knew them, they're like, oh, if they'd just been around, they would have changed the world. But yeah,
It's funny. My buddy and I were having a conversation. It doesn't come up on, like, true crime, but you'll get it in, like, historical records. where like somebody will get murdered in front of like literally like dozens of people, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know who did it," because the person was just such an asshole that they're like, he needed killing.
Yeah. Nope, saw nothing.
They're like,
So,
I don't know, man. Like it was some sort of short, tall dude with brown blonde hair. I don't know.
Right.
So I definitely want to cover this, but obviously, we do have a kind of variant tier based on this campaign. But as you guys know, and we mentioned earlier, because we have a continuing releases with our partners at Vivi, as well as kind of other channels, I did ask Ranga to help us with a variant cover for number 2 as well. So I don't know how much you want to share about that, Ranga, but I saw you start jumping into it right away. And it's highly appreciated, but I want to make that announcement here today, guys, while everyone's here, that Ranga will be joining the forces with this project. So thank you.
Yeah, I was super excited when you asked me, man. I mean, I pretty much fanboyed out, right? I was like, hey, it's I'm having already read kind of the Ashcan and been a fan of it, and then to be asked, hey, do you want to do a cover? That was super cool. Yeah, I think. I can't remember what time you asked me, but like maybe like 3 hours later, I kind of showed you like a concept.
I know, that was awesome. That's the fastest turnaround I've ever seen. So
yeah, I
appreciate that.
I was super stoked about it. You kind of described what you wanted to see, which I mean, can I describe the idea? Like,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it was more like a movie poster style montage that allowed like highlighting the different characters like in it, and then knowing that it's for issue 2, I had to kind of be careful because there's like one of my favorite characters visually shows up in issue 3. I wish I could tell you what her name was, but Justin wouldn't name her. So she shows up in issue 3, so I had to kind of be careful, like not to foreshadow that stuff on the cover to issue 2. But I'm having a ball with it. I'm past the prelim stage right now since Carl said it was good to go. But yeah, just chipping away at it. It's challenging, man. I've never done like one of those montage type pieces before, like on a movie poster, and I guess it's like super easy when you just take a bunch of pieces and Photoshop it together, like for a movie poster. But when you're kind of trying to draw it that way, the transitions between characters and stuff, that's what I'm finding, to have clarity with each character. That's been challenging, but it's been fun. I've been poring over Brian's drawings and like hating on him for how complex Shrike's design is.
And it keeps changing too.
Yeah, trust me, I saw.
So,
but I picked like some of the coolest aspects that I liked. I mean, it doesn't really change that much, but just picked some of the stuff that I thought was like coolest.
So another question from Jeff Wong. Ranga, thanks for that. While writing each issue, did you listen to or had a soundtrack in your mind that influenced the story?
No, because for the most part, like whenever I get focused on writing, I kind of tune everything else out. So like I'm not a listen to stuff while I'm writing kind of guy. I will sometimes have stuff on in the background to drown out other background noise, but I don't hear it. I did have to make a concerted effort to not hear California Dreamin' in my head for reasons that are complicated. Like it's from Chungking Express. Like it features prominently in there, and I hate that song. I love the movie, but I hate the song. And like because I associate that with like Hong Kong, kind of, even though it's not like. I was like, it became this thing where every time I would start writing it, it would start playing in my head. I'm like, God damn it! Like, but once I got into the rhythm of writing, it would get tuned out, so we were good. So no, it's just the voices in my head and me. What? Come here.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, folks? I mean, we're about 3-4 more minutes. Ranga, questions from the audience as well?
No, but there was a great suggestion from the audience that said, like, put that character that shows up in issue 3, put him in my issue 2 cover so it becomes a formal first appearance.
That's true.
Oh yeah.
No, don't do that. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's actually. I'm guessing it's one of Justin's tactics of getting people to reread all the issues and even go back. It's almost like a escape room to find out the names. You have to buy the next issue and go back. So,
It's true.
Levy, how about this one? Mickey, here's a good one for you. Will you guys be using PSA to grade your comic books?
Sure, we'll definitely try them out. See how they do and what kind of service they provide. But as far as grading things that are high value or vintage, I think it's going to take a little while before people start sending those types of things over to them. But it's cool. It's cool to see them come into the space. You can definitely send a Zero Ghost book in there and have them.
Yeah, I want to. I'm actually gonna. I have literally books picked aside. That's I think going to be 9.8 or 9.9, and I'm gonna ship those in and get those graded.
I think getting it in the census over there is would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm excited to use PSA. I've been begging for competition in the grading space for a while from a contender. I was curious. I know, Nikki, you saw one of the slabs in person, right?
Yeah.
I heard a rumor that they don't have an inner well in their slab. Did you notice that?
They have something that is akin to an inner well, but it's not the same as what CGC does. So, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was curious about that. I'm very eager to try them. I mean, I do some card grading, and that's who I use for card grading. So I'm curious to see what they have to offer, and I think more competition is usually a good thing in spaces that are as niche as our hobby.
Yeah, definitely send those metal cards in, the Kickstarter cards. If we get
there you go.
Yeah, do they grade metal cards? I don't know, because I feel like I haven't seen metal cards graded before. Would they?
I think they. I mean, are they the same kind of standard size as other trading cards?
Standard size.
Yeah. I think they would grade it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they have to be 10.0 then, because they're like full, they're like unbreakable, right? You can't.
Definitely, they got to be 10.0s. Yeah. But if you can get the guys to sign them, they can also verify the signatures and stuff on it too. So that'd be kind of cool.
That's true. Before the verification. So Sean won't be able to join us at 3:30. He has no Wi-Fi where he's at. So we're gonna just keep going, guys. I mean, Iranga, let's talk a little bit about the comic art tiers. I mean, for me personally, that's kind of like what gets me super excited with any Kickstarter that I back. What are your thoughts? I mean, obviously with Brian, he was able to dig through his vault and he pulled up a few things. I think one was his art from Batman, Witchblade, as well as Tomb Raider, and then he also pulled stuff up from Star Wars. And so these were kind of the 4 art tiers that we provided with, Brian Ching at the 6x9 art sketch, the comic art fan bundles, which has those 3 titles, and then with the Star Wars bundle, and as well as a 11x17 quality commission, which 2 out of the 3 is already gone. So if anyone's looking for that, definitely go for it now. And if you guys are in the stream now, feel free to pass this to a friend that may be interested. Yeah, Ranga, from an art collector perspective, what are your thoughts here?
I think it's a super smart way to engage a section of the public that specifically art collectors. That there's a lot of them. I mean, we know them. Where a lot of them don't read comics anymore. I mean, they're just kind of chasing, the nostalgia from the 90s and early 2000s or 80s, whatever that may have been. They don't. So it's a cool way to kind of engage them and bring them on board and throw something new their way in terms of comics and let them know that good comics didn't end in the 90s. And I to be honest with you, I think they're fairly priced tiers as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Some great pricing on those tiers.
Yeah, especially I think for me too, the Batmans of the world. I mean, almost every page has Batman on it, which is awesome.
Yeah. I was a little disappointed that there wasn't any Zero Ghost original art, Brian.
That's a whole separate conversation. He's married to those. For sure.
Is
I
it-
get
is
it. I
it-
get it.
I swear I misread the tier and I thought like plus all zero ghost meant there was all zero ghost art in there. So I was like chomping at the bit for this thing to go live. And I was like, wait a second, they're just talking about the books. Like Brian's hoarding the pages.
You got to keep those covers forever.
There might be. It might be like a Deadpool cover, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
I know.
New Mutants '98 cover up for $7 million
Right.
got listed.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
No, I
Yeah,
think
I'll-
it's a
I'll
I think
be
it's a
right
really
back.
cool tier.
So Brian, let's talk about that. I mean, when you think about original art, then is that kind of the thinking? Like one day this might just be like a bonkers thing. Is it more of like a personal attachment to what you've poured so much of your heart and soul into? Like, what are the things that go through your mind? Like, just for me, I know I bug you a lot with stuff like this, but kind of curious on your thoughts and your thought process.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, how do you value something? I guess with a lot of my Star Wars stuff, I think I kept it for nostalgia reasons. And then there was that story. I don't know, was it like 3 or 4 years ago? The Scott Williams, Jim Lee X-Men cover that Scott Williams sold for I don't know how much, and then fast forward, what is it, like 15, 20 years later, and it was like $1 million or something like that. Not saying that would ever happen to me, but that would crush me if something like that did happen. And so it's like, how do you value something? If I say I value the Zero Ghost cover to issue number 1, and let's say I sell it for $1,000 today because it's like, oh, that's all it's worth to me today. And then 10 years from now, Zero Ghost actually performs well, becomes this and that, becomes a video game, becomes whatever, and it's like, hey, there's that idiot who sold his first cover for $1,000, and now it's worth whatever, And so it's kind of like, well, I think it's worth it to me to just keep it, and maybe someday everything will just go in a comic museum, and I don't know. That's sort of how I think of things.
Yeah, you have to have the price that is so good that you'll never lose sleep over whatever it sells for in the future.
Right.
Yeah,
So
in fact,
if Bill Gates wants to buy issue 1, just make an offer.
Exactly.
True. Like, there's always a price to everything. I mean, this one, I know a Switch Hands is not from Liefeld. It is actually from a private owner. But I know Liefeld had mentioned that when he sold it, he got a lot for at the time compared to what comic art was going for. And
Right.
so I know this has been like the biggest news. And I thought it was also very interesting, Ranga. I'll have some of these discussions with Brian as well about kind of creating that market, right? It's almost like your art being out there also helps kind of over time elevate the value of it, because the more exposure to other collectors and the more kind of spread out it is, there's always this kind of strategy, especially when it comes to fine art, on how demand is created as well. So I think there's like this fine balance that happens when it comes to art. So how do you see your artwork when you work on it?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kind of like Brian in a certain way. I've only ever sold one of the covers willingly that I've worked on. I kind of hang on to my work. So this was it was just me ragging on Brian. I do the same thing. It's hard to let go of, not just from a financial perspective, but you work on something and you kind of love it, and it's when it's with you, and it's just hard to. I feel the same way with commissions, to be honest with you. Like, someone's already paid me to do this thing, and I do it, and I kind of love it. And I was like, well, shit, they've already paid for it. I guess I got to ship it off now. Yeah, I have that attachment syndrome to stuff I work on. That, yeah, I'm the wrong guy. But getting back to that to that Liefeld cover. It's hard, man. Like if you, it's there's so many things that go into one. I think it's an absurd ask.
It's pretty crazy.
Considering, you know, what Dark Knight pages have gone for, or like a Dark Knight cover. But you know, it's a new. I think they're targeting a different kind of collector. Well, that's someone probably coming in from another industry. Yeah, I don't know, but I do think like one of the things you should do is test out their Heritage's user interface and see what actually happens if you put it in the add to cart button. I've never. Can you just hit that yellow button, Carl?
We're gonna buy it now, guys.
Oh, does that now remove it from like if someone else checked it out on there? Is that how their system is set up?
I'm
Like,
not gonna press the buy now just in case it is set up too. But it is in my cart.
Oh, man, I would be super nervous if I was you.
Make an offer. Yeah, sign it. I'm not gonna sign it right now, but it's pretty funny though.
Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, it's. I guess you could say, you know, you use the rising tide analogy. I mean, it's good for all comic art, right? If something like that.
Yeah.
So, but I just think it's such a quantum leap over what anything else has gone for, and then you start thinking, is this really the one to do it? And that's not a commentary on the art. That's the, you know, I'm not throwing shade at it. It's just, is this the piece that would do it? Like you would think it'd be something, you know, a little bit more significant, like a, you know, a Watchmen cover or a Dark Knight cover, something that, you know, moved the needle really in comics. I mean, you could argue Deadpool did, but I don't know. There's a lot of talk around it right now, obviously.
A ton. Sarah, Mickey, Bronze. I mean, you guys come from different perspectives of pop culture. Any reaction to this?
I mean, whoever owns it, it sort of now is as good a time as any to put it up on the market, you know, and see if people bite. I mean, what's the record price? There was the Secret Wars, you know, splash page that sold for like $3 million. I think is that one of the highest ticketed items that's ever sold?
It's up there, right? That's if not it's like one of the top two for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know if you would. I doubt that thing would get the same price it got today, but I mean, 7.5 seems pretty high for this. But at the same time, I mean, all you need is one person, and you know, I'm sure Ryan Reynolds could, you know, just pay for it with a rounding error from what he's going to make in the box office.
That's true.
I think that is the goal. Like, I think that's the bait on the hook here. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So you think they're going after Ryan?
Or someone in a similar position,
Right.
that's involved with this.
Connected to him.
Maybe Hugh will buy it and set it on fire to troll Ryan.
Oh man,
That'd be pretty funny.
I kind of feel like maybe why not? Like Marvel Studios should buy it. And they just put it in there, you know, all their
like museum
stuff.
And gift it to Ryan.
Yeah, it's definitely not aimed at the average collector or even the top tier of collector. I don't think, like existing comic card collector. That's not what this is aimed at. That's not who this is aimed at. I don't think.
Yeah, even some of the bigger ones. I mean, if you look at like Frank Frazetta,
Egyptian
number
Queen.
one, Egyptian Queen. I mean, he's evolved into fine art, right? It's almost like historical fine art. And
but that's full. That's a full oil, you know, painted canvas too. So it's like compared to the Liefeld page, I feel like, it's a high ask. It's a high ask for sure.
Here's the 3.3 right here. Secret War splash. Which this is a strange one. This one, I think because Mark Zek is awesome, but his normal market just isn't even close to this level. So this one is definitely specifically for historic, reference. While I think Liefeld, his stuff is not cheap, right? So I think it's pretty interesting in itself.
I
And this one-
definitely agree with what you said earlier, Carl. You're thinking comics are getting bigger, and I see that. All you need is like some hype beasts, some like supreme collectors, like they're coming. So you just need that one person that's just trying to outdo the other.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great in a way, but it's also kind of sucks for true collectors because it could be your dream page,
Yeah.
and someone's just buying it because they can, so you can't have it.
Right.
Yeah, to
Right.
piggyback off that, like I always tell people, don't wait. Like if there's an artist that's up and coming that you're excited about, just get in while you can. I mean, that's why things like the pages on the Kickstarter, for example, that are available on that backer tier, that's a really good deal. You know, things like that are worth considering because art pretty much only goes up.
So there you go. You're seeing these, 2.4 million for the Dark Knight. You could potentially get a Batman page if you back on day one for a very small
Let's
comparison. So for 488. So we got the deals going on at our Kickstarter. And
Brian, would you take
that's
2
where-
million right now if I offered it for Zero Ghost page 1?
How much?
Indecent proposal, the sequel.
A cover.
2 million, Zero Ghost cover, number one. What do you think? It'll
Oh,
get
that's
you on
good.
this list pretty quickly.
You're at the top of the forever thank you list.
See, and that's the thing about art. It's so crazy because Brian is still hesitating.
Yeah,
like,
He's still not even committed to it.
"Look how powerful art is. It's awesome. No, it's great.
I noticed that too.
It's like it's priceless. I think that's why it's so powerful. Where, maybe to someone, even for Dark Knight. I mean, Ranga. I don't remember. Like, there's a lot of controversy with this cover as well because it's essentially like a large color guide.
Color guide.
by Lynn Varley, who I think was Frank Miller's wife at the time, I believe.
Yep.
And so so it's a color guide, and that was kind of like, the conversation. But to him, to whoever the owner is, it's the original. That's the one that was published, right?
Right.
And so it's that in itself is pretty powerful. And even Mickey, you just did a perfect, test on how much connection one can have with art. And so, in a way, you're asking Brian to sell his baby for 2 million.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah. Yeah, the baby before the
He's
art.
more likely.
So that's
You can always make
That's-
another baby, but you can't always.
Exactly.
Dime a dozen.
No, it's interesting, and I say this as a non-art guy. Like, it's funny because I've got, I don't know, at a guess, 50, 60K of trad art, because of books we worked on, and he's my buddy. And, like, I wouldn't sell it, like, unless, like, I needed money for, like, a kidney transplant or something, I guess, maybe. But, like, in normal circumstances, it literally is priceless. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those, like, there isn't an amount that I'm going to sell it for.
It's priceless, but it's such a good investment. Just thinking, like, what if? You'll always have that. You probably would rather figure something else out, but
Yeah.
I think it's incredible that people are really understanding the investment aspects of it versus just your own personal love as well.
Yeah. I mean, sir, you're a Star Wars collector. You have, a ton of artifacts from that space.
Yeah,
Like,
I
how does-
inherited my dad's entire original collection. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, dogs chewed a couple legs off here and there. But
Oh no.
yeah, it was really incredible to just have something. He wasn't around to hold my hand through, but just being welcomed by the community, even though I wasn't able to fully grow up in it, has been truly special. And just I learned so much each and every time talking with all of you guys. So it's a really meaningful thing what you all do. So thank you.
And then what goes through your mind when you see these pieces of Star Wars art?
I just get chills. You sent me the files yesterday, and I was trying not to screenshot them and send them to my mom. But they're it's just amazing. And Brian, you may not remember the exact issue or page because you've done so much, but you know, we do. We have those memories attached. So it's a beautiful thing. I can't even draw stick figures, so you know, I'm like, I can do makeup. That's my version of what you guys are doing, but it really is incredible too for you, knowing how much you hold on to things, to offer this up in the vaults. Like, I've been kind of chatting with people on social media all day, and it's a lot of people know, how did you actually decide on these to give up? Because I know George Lucas, like, its first pick of Star Wars stuff, and you still ended up with really cool stuff. Brian,
is that true, Brian?
Yeah,
Does
it was
George?
pretty tough. That was the deal. I don't know if that's still the deal, to be honest with you.
It's still
first
that
round.
way.
It's still valid.
It's still that way. Yeah.
That George Lucas gets the pick of the artwork first?
Yes, Lucasfilm gets first pick.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes like these pages get held up forever after they come up because they haven't made a decision yet, and there's artists just sitting around like, just make a decision, let me get my pages back so I can sell them.
Oh wow. Okay. That's interesting. I hadn't known that.
All right, you heard it here first. It's still happening, so you get first dibs here. Very, very rare. I think Brian, we talked about this too. I think there was some transitional stuff that was happening that, you know, made these kind of go under the radar. And I think I know a couple other artists who was in similar situation with that stuff, because I want to double check. And so I think as much as it's kind of like part of the agreement, I do feel like more and more is starting to, because I think he can only carry so much, right? He can only have so much. And with the Museum of Narrative Arts, and I think after him, you know, they said the moment was once he sold, it was a less of a thing, where it wasn't him personally pursuing these pieces anymore. It's more of just like old corporate language kind of thing. So it's less attentive to. So
so sick.
man, it's been kind of cool just seeing this thing grow throughout the day. We have another kind of push tomorrow, 13.5 now, and then we have a few pushes next week, and then one big one at the end of the campaign, which is kind of typically the cycle for Kickstarters. So anyone who's new here in the chat, definitely check out our Kickstarter campaign. We're launching Zero Goes today. It gives you issue 1 through 3. We have the team here today, so if you have any questions for them or for us in regards to the campaign, definitely chime in and let us know. We have a few special guests here as well. Bronze Age Nerd, we all know him for his channel as well as his philanthropy work, as well as Iranga D, good friend of mine, fellow collector, as well as artist who's been doing covers and commissions for the community. So what other big topics have been surfacing coming out of San Diego Comic-Con?
Well, aside from RDJ and Dr. Doom.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
I wasn't there. Well, were you in the room when the announcement was made, Carl?
I wasn't in the room. I've really mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so do I. That's the only thing I can say about it right now. I'm just I'm on the edge about it. You know, I'm not sure. He's a great actor. You know, I'm just not sure what they're gonna do with it. You know, so it's interesting to see it unfold.
Well, let's look at the headlines. I mean, you see, well, Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom revived the MCU. Fans are skeptical. I'm skeptical. There's theories, right? Does anyone know any theories? There's first look that's obviously AI generated that's going around.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential tie-ins to previous stories. I think there's a lot of fans speculating based on what they've read or what they think could happen with this. But I also think you have projects here that he's coming to being helmed by the Russo brothers, and they haven't necessarily closely followed previous storylines. Like they've more followed the spirit of those storylines. So I feel like it's just kind of one of those things where you almost need to sit back and just kind of watch and see what happens. But I understand why a lot of people are kind of concerned to see like a cast reuse, but there could be a logical explanation for it, and it could also just be one of those things where it's, hey, maybe Doom never takes off the mask and he just uses his voice talent, and that's what you see in the movies. But I'm hopeful. I think that, you know, if there's anybody who can turn out some fantastic MCU movies, it's the Russo brothers.
Agreed. Yeah.
Did they actually come out and say like he's playing Victor Von Doom, or did they just say he's playing Doctor Doom? Like, is he Tony Stark, a variant that ends up being Doctor Doom? Have they specifically said Tony Stark as Victor Von Doom?
I believe it was just Doom. I don't believe they ever said Victor Von Doom.
I saw a quote from one of the Russos that did say Victor Von Doom. But
there we go.
Like,
nice.
Yeah. So
it doesn't really, but that doesn't really mean anything to me, because I feel like you can judo that however you want, like later on. You know,
and that could be another Fargo based on a true story, sort of quote,
right?
You know.
It's one of those choices where if it's good, it's good. If it's a train wreck, it's going to be a train wreck. You know, who knows? But it's a bold choice, that's for sure.
This is definitely not a comparison, but when I heard it, it gave me like that Nicolas Cage, like, I'm gonna be Ghost Rider just cause.
That's so funny. That's interesting. I mean, Superman too, right? Wasn't he cast as Superman at one point?
Yeah, and I was like, no, you don't have to do everything. Like, we already like you. Like, just.
Well,
are you saying
one thing I'll say about it is
that the new Nicolas Cage?
I will say that he wanted to try.
Sarah has to run as well, so.
Oh yeah,
guys! This has been so incredible. Each and every one of you, like, I mean, met the goal, but it's just such a pleasure being a part of this. So, thank you so much.
No, thank you for the team effort.
And all you guys watching, if we hit 15K, we are unlocking something very special. We're almost there. I'm not going to spoil it this time, but please keep supporting, and we'll see you guys really soon.
Yeah, thanks for that plug. I'll put that back up.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye. We're at 13:05. And so with that said, we're at 3:55, about 5 minutes out to welcome another guest to the channel. And so, guys, should we kind of wrap up this RDJ conversation? Any other last thoughts?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to me, it's kind of logical, because for years when he was wrapping up the arc as Iron Man, we heard him saying that he kind of felt like he did everything he could with that character, and he kind of felt like he got to the end of what he could do with it. And Robert Downey Jr. is clearly an actor that cares about his performances. So to me, it makes perfect sense to see him pivot to a villain and try to take on like a completely different aspect. And he hasn't really, I'm trying to think if he's ever really played a villain. I'm sure he has at some point, but not something he kind of is known for. So I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Not since Weird Science, but he was more of a bully in Weird Science than a villain.
No, he played a villain in so he's a villain in U.S. Marshals, which is a spoiler, but fuck it. It's
yeah.
He's
kind of an Oppenheimer.
Yeah. He's also a villain in it's a Neil Jordan movie.
It's
got Annette Bening in it. I can't remember the name of it. He's actually really good as a villain too. Like he's really creepy. RDJ is one of those things. Is like, if he doesn't play Doom as Tony Stark, I'm theoretically into it. Like quippy Doom is not what we're going for. Like that's not how Doom should work to me. So I don't know. I'm open to it. Like, certainly, to my mind, the Russos haven't really gone wrong yet in the MCU, and RDJ is a great actor, like, legitimately. So I'm open to it.
Yeah, I'm a reserved judgment. I think for me, the biggest disruption was, if you haven't watched the Deadpool movie yet, it's your fault. But basically, to me, walking out of Deadpool was, I felt like they did a really good job of resetting the universe, especially this whole multiverse thing, especially because Deadpool called it out and was like almost like in a way announcing like, oh, it's not gonna happen anymore. And then all of a sudden we see 100 Dooms on stage, and Robert Downey shows up. To me, hinting that this is gonna be some sort of multiverse, which I get it. Fantastic Four is already kind of set up that way. So that's kind of my biggest disappointment. So I just hope that in a way, if this is their kind of second chance at the multiverse, they do it better than the first. So
No. One word for you, Carl. Doombots.
True. Interesting. Okay. Well, with that said, why don't we welcome another fellow comic fan and YouTuber, Rob Fatstacks. I had a chance to hang out with this gentleman at dinner at this last San Diego Comic Con, and I'm sure you guys all know each other too. Like I'm sure with Bronze, Mickey, you guys all know each other. It's a small community. So with that said, Rob, welcome to
Thanks
this
for having me.
super long live stream. I don't know how many hours we're in now, but we've been in it for like 6-7 hours, and it's really to one, celebrate this launch of the Zero Ghost Kickstarter. You had a chance to read the books. The creator team is on board here, but also to kind of introduce to the community our friends. And so why don't we take a moment and if you don't mind, kind of share your background, your journey, and how you came to be, and what you're up to, so we could all get on the same page.
I was born on a different planet, and it was about to be exploded, and my parents threw me in a rocket ship. No. I came to comics actually very late for most people in my generation. I didn't start collecting until I was in college, and that was mostly just a function of availability, some issues with dyslexia, and when I actually finding comics actually made it easier to read, and made it more enjoyable to read because of the way the words are broken up. That makes it much easier in small sample sizes. Makes it much easier to read and consume. And I fell in love with back in 1992, a nice red shiny foil #1 on a newsstand spinner rack, Spider-Man 2099, and that became my first comic book. And went down that road for a while, reading comics, and then until Maximum Clonage, where I sold my entire collection because I was done with comics after that pile of manure, and was out of comics again until my kid was a young boy and wanted to start reading some stuff and was having some of the similar issues. I took him right to the shop. Next thing you know, I was back in it, and then it just became an obsession from then on. I was all in again, and here I am today. I start collecting. Next thing you know, you're unboxing what you collect and showing it for people on YouTube. And next thing you know, somehow you're roped in and doing charity work because somebody started the campaign that was grassroots and couldn't continue it on. And through some weird connection, I ended up running along with 2 other guys running Comics Curing Cancer, which has kind of just become a big deal, all consuming for us for the past 3 years, really.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Rob. Great intro, and that's one of the major reasons why I want you to come on today. It's I see your activities, your emails that goes out when it comes to Comics Curing Cancer, and personally touched by all that you're doing, because I've had a few close friends as well as close family members go through that battle, and so I think it's a powerful cause, and definitely want to invite you here to kind of talk about what you're doing, and in hopes that we could all be, supportive of whatever you need help with.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of the things that you find when you're doing this, especially like when I was at Heroes Con talking to people. There's not a person you talk to that doesn't have a story. And that's the worst part, is that everybody either has a family member, a friend, or whatever that has some sort of connection that has gone through cancer, a battle, win or lose. And so that's what really truly is, I like to say, it makes it the true supervillain, right? But we're teaming up. We want to try to make a difference. I'd love to make it to a point where we could talk to people who said, no, I've never known anybody who had cancer. That would be great to get to that day, let alone a complete elimination. So this was something that was started as a grassroots effort by a YouTuber 4 years ago. and he just did a 24-hour marathon, and to try to raise $2,000 to give to the American Cancer Society. He ended up raising 8. The American Cancer Society took notice, and when they did that, they adopted it as an official campaign. After that, I ended up taking over, got teamed up with Legion of Comics and DJ Links. The 3 of us co-coordinate the event essentially, and we just kind of put on a 3-day online event instead of 24 hours because I'm too old for that stuff. And, we started collecting items from the community donations that we started off with an auction, and it's kind of blown up a little bit more into this big 3-day virtual event, a mixture of auctions, a mixture of pledge drive type efforts. But last year, or our first year, we set out to match that $8,000. We raised $10,000. The next year we set out to raise $10,000. They hit 25. Last year we went out to hit 25. We raised $51,000 last year, just from the comic book community online on YouTube and stuff. So this year we set the goal at 50,000. We've been very fortunate that we've had some support from like some retailers like Big Time Collectibles, who donated to us half of a print run of an exclusive comic that we were allowed to sell, that Miko Suyin cover, and all the money was able to go directly to Comics Curing Cancer. We were able to do the same thing. Comic Mint helped us out with a cover for Unnatural Order last year, do the same thing. So we're kind of getting some of those things. We're starting to get some attention and starting to get some added perks that allow us to make our reach a little bit more impactful.
It's awesome, man. I think, obviously we've all probably been touched by that in one way or another as a community. So we definitely want you to come and share more about it. And, just speaking on behalf of the 24/7 side, we definitely will be donating and contributing as well. And I'll personally definitely donate, similar to what we did for Bronze and the Heroes for Heroes side of things as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of why we come together is really about the stories that we read. And what was cool too is you sharing about dyslexia and how comics help you read. That was me. So it's funny, I actually deal with dyslexia my whole life, but it was really comics that got me to start reading more regularly. I read very slowly when I write. Those of you who interact with me on emails and whatnot already know that and probably used to it, but I always kind of flip words back and forth. So AI has been great for me, just to spell check and all that kind of stuff, right? And so, I definitely, everything you said was very relatable. And
I wish more people would talk about it, because I think that, dyslexia is something that affects a lot of children. It can turn them away from books and everything else. And I think that the stigma on graphic novels and comics, people don't understand how that is. First of all, there's some phenomenal stories that have been told in comics and graphic novels, let alone the fact that if it can get a kid to read, any reading is good. And if it can serve it to them in a format that allows them to digest it easily, then there's nothing wrong with it whatsoever.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And speaking of reading, actually, I know, your channel covers slab books. We were talking about comic art and how a lot of art collectors don't read anymore. Did you have a chance to read Zero Ghost? And
I did. I crammed it in today. Cool. In between reading contracts, legal contracts, when I needed to read something that I could actually digest easily.
Yeah, so we have the creator team here. We'd love to get your feedback, thoughts, any question you may have for the boys. They've spent a lot of time on it. We also have Bronze.
All my questions are spoiler questions, but I won't ask them. But I will just say that I was amazed how I'm usually a superhero comic reader or sci-fi, but I love once you got into this really quickly, got hooked into the mystery aspect of of the whole story, the who did it type of thing that was going on, as well as, of course, the supernatural aspects of things was going on. I was hooked. That's great. I can't wait to read more.
Yeah, Justin, we haven't talked much about the whole mystery aspect of it. Kind of, in a way, you're kind of scratching your head, wondering what the heck is going on. You want to elaborate more on that and how that was used as to engineer
Sure,
the story?
I'll just solve the mystery for everybody on this live stream. It was, no, I really like crime and detective stuff. So I was, and I don't get to do as much of it as I would like. So since we were doing kind of a crime thing, I decided to, add a mystery sort of aspect to it as well. Part of that, to get into how the sausage is made, like some of it is that I wanted a reason for Kira to explore a world she already knows, but the reader doesn't. So I had to have a reason for her to interact with all these various characters and stuff, and trying to untangle who betrayed her family and why was a good sort of engine for bringing her into interacting with all these other characters and really, setting the thing off. So it's one of those deals where like you can build a revenge story on something as simple as like these assholes killed my dog, now I'm going to kill them back. But like I think when you add the mystery aspect of it, you get to see your characters doing more than just fighting and bashing heads.
It was also a great device for getting you up to speed with what was going on in that world and how that world interacts by getting the process of going to these different families to trying to find out who is responsible. It's I just thought it was a phenomenal device to be able to really get you a lot of information real fast as a reader.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was the intent. Like we did some really cool world building on it, I thought. So I wanted to give a chance to actually just kind of tool around the world and, let people enjoy it, hopefully enjoy it. So far people seem to be digging it. So I think we did a good job.
Man, the world building is probably one of the funnest. And even speaking of world building, I think Aranga highlighted the kind of organic diversity from, this kind of snapshot of a potential Hong Kong as well. But Aranga, I know you have to go. So thanks for making time for us. I do want to highlight this question that they have for you. So if you don't mind answering this before you go.
Fucking Marcus.
Marcus is another friend of ours. It's total. It was a spoiler alert to House of Dragons, folks. So,
yeah. But hey, guys, listen. Like, thanks so much for kind of letting me come on and like even more like letting me contribute to this book that I really like freaking love, man. It's I can't wait to read issue 50 when you guys kind of bring it home. So thanks for having me on, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, Aranga.
Thanks, Aranga.
Great meeting you.
Let me move him. All right. Rob, back to Fat Stack. So I know you touched on a little bit about how, over pandemic, it really started picking up opening boxes and whatnot. Where has your channel now and your content evolved to now? I know hanging out with Mickey and Bronze, I've seen their evolution, talked about future evolutions and things they're thinking about. Like, what are you thinking about?
My evolution is really not to evolve. I have no aspirations on, like the fact that X number of people watch me at any given time blows my mind anyways, but I'm not doing it for anybody. I'm doing it because I enjoy just sharing my passion for what I'm collecting. And if somebody else gets a kick out of the variety, and that's usually what I hear the most from people who do watch my stuff, is the variety of stuff. Because I'm not really a niche. I'm all over the place. I'm just, I like this shiny. I like this shiny. And so people get a chance to see a lot of different elements. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a collector. I'm showing off my collection. And then I have my Saturday live stream with Only Slabs, which is a collector showcase, essentially, where we have different collectors come on and for 90 minutes and show off elements of their collection and talk about it and get to know the collectors. So that's really what I like to focus on, is probably that aspect. I do have some ideas for occasional pieces aside from unboxings. Every once in a while I do a product review. Every once in a while I've done some discussions about comparing grading companies and stuff. And I always try to keep it very factual based and not try to leave as much opinion out of it as possible. Let viewers make their own opinions. But aside from that, I'm happy to just continue to do what I'm doing. It's a little bit of a creative outlet for somebody who has to deal with legal contracts for a living.
Oh man, I don't know how you do it. I mean, with dyslexia, you have to work twice as hard. I mean, I have to read. I read tons of contracts every week too, and it's hard.
And it's a completely different language too,
totally
right?
different.
It's,
So
yeah.
So I mean, okay, I'll put a question out for you three specifically. That since and this is more of maybe us as a new publisher, a new creator team, independent, launching from Kickstarter, like. Where do we fit? Because I know there's a lot of content creation happens surrounding, obviously as content creators, Rob, it's great you do it for yourself. I think, Swaggle, Bronze, you guys actually are very authentic in the way you.
It was such a nice compliment. I think we might.
Yeah, he was like YouTube was like, you're lying. Authentic? No,
Wow,
you can't be nice.
Really did break the internet.
Whoa, what happened?
Yeah,
weird.
You were glazing us up, and then you got
literally like they're trying to shut you guys down. So you guys literally all just went black for a second, and then started having this like little like waiting hourglass. I don't know what you guys missed, but basically what I'm saying is I've literally had talks with different content creators, and some are literally like, oh, I don't do anything unless there's a Marvel movie attached, or like I don't do anything unless there's because I need the views, right? And so we don't bring any of that to the table right now, right? Because we just don't have that type of audience. So what you guys' advice to like Brian, Justin, Will, myself, even Mickey, who's involved with like marketing, original content, original indie books, like where do we find space to appear in front of folks?
Chris,
Good
I'll let you
question.
go first.
So my advice is, and I can kind of relate to the comment about, I don't even make a video unless there's MCU stuff involved because of the clicks. I can relate to the other side of that because I literally don't make anything to get clicks. It's to me the kind of like what Rob was saying earlier. This is a project. It's a creative outlet for me. So that's all I want to do. I want to do what my audience cares about in terms of respecting them and their opinions. And I want to make the kind of video content that I want to put out there. And when I don't want to make content, I don't make content. When I feel creative and like I can do it, I do it. So from that perspective, I think really you gotta interact with the part of the community that reads. And not to be too cynical, but unfortunately there is a large segment of collectors that are involved on that speculation side, which is really big on YouTube. And by the way, this is not a universal truth. There are plenty of speculators out there that do read, but there's a lot of them out there that just buy based on covers. They buy based on speculation for characters that are going to appear inside the books, usually from the big two, but not always. Movie spec, that kind of stuff. And that's certainly an audience, but unless you are in those, things are getting optioned, you're talking about movies, you're talking about TV series, you're not really going to engage with them. So there are, thankfully, lots and lots and lots of YouTube channels out there that cater to, and not just YouTube, social media outlets out there that cater to readers, people that actually want to read new and exciting stories. And I think that's really the key, is to get in with that group and make sure that all the people out there that haven't heard about 24/7 yet actually get a chance to, and about the projects that are coming out there, doing things like this live stream, doing interviews, sharing those kinds of perspectives out there. That's all key, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think YouTube, in terms of the comic space, I kind of think of it in three sort of lanes. I think there's like sort of a collector lane, which I think the three of us all are sort of more in that space. There's and then that is an umbrella to speculating and CGC and all that stuff. Like it all fits within that space, or even unboxings and things like that. Then there's the stories lane, which is like Comics Explained. Let me tell you what happened in Planet Hulk, and then we're going to have moving images and that sort of thing. And then there's culture stuff, which can dive into political things, or wokeness in MCU, or it could be pro MCU stuff, but culture, pop culture in general. So I think those are kind of the three comic book lanes. And I don't know, it's hard for, I think, indie publishers to sort of figure out where to be, but I might be biased, but I think that the collector experiential reader lane is somewhere you want to be between those two, I think, is really where you want to be. You know, it's a lot of the people at the cons that enjoy meeting artists that want to just have an interaction, meet the creators, go up to Brian, you know, have you sign my book and talk about it and get a story and get kind of this sort of, you know, unique experience just buying this sort of indie product that is not Marvel and DC, that's something different. And I got to like meet the creators and put a face behind the names. I think that that's really the lane, and be like a force in the community, I think is probably the best way for an indie publisher to break through. I mean, you can hit a grand slam, you know, you can like write the greatest book ever and it just takes off. But I think in this day and age, it's sort of hard to be that sensation now. Like, I don't know if anyone can recreate, like, say, you know, a 90s image anymore in that same sort of way, because there's just too many siloed pieces to get entertainment, and like culture is so divided. Like you some people get culture from TikTok, some get it from YouTube, some get it from wherever. So I think it's really just being like, you know, it's almost like grassroots again. It's really like the best place to do it. And I think just targeting the collector base, the people who are passionate about art, the people who are passionate about stories. And I don't know, I think that seems to be the best place to do it. So, and I try to do that as well. Like, obviously my channel is mostly dedicated to the collector side, but I try to bridge it a little bit, you know, from time to time, like doing a stream like this. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's all great observation, because I do feel like it is about the community and really kind of taking care of each other and building together outside the kind of traditional space of the big two. How about you, Rob? What do you think?
You know, I do know several people who did have focus on the storytelling content and stuff, and yeah, it's probably those realms, like you said, split between the collectors, split between the reading group. Those are definitely elements to get involved in. It's just being involved in the community. I think I've seen us in the past, group people come in and they just get ingrained in the community and what they're doing, and taking part in what, you know, commenting on the videos and stuff that the community is doing and being a part of it. And then all of a sudden they just get embraced, and everybody then starts becoming an organic cheerleaders for somebody, because they now feel like you're a part of them and they want to help push you to succeed, and they all start kind of climbing in together on stuff.
Yeah, I think it is that crossover that makes the most sense.
And it's kind of it's
Franz
also
had to jump. You guys also keep going. I need to actually go refill my water real quick. Continue, and then I'll be right back.
Yeah. Well, my other little point for Carl was well, now that he's not here, it's just I think that connecting again to the retailers is a really important thing. I think that there's always been sort of this disconnect between the pipeline and the process of, like, you know, you're a creator, you give it to the publishing company, and then through the machine it finds its way into a comic book store. But I think in this space where you're sort of a little more hands-on, I think like really connecting intimately with those retailers and doing collaborations with them and having them be, you know, champions of your work is hugely important, because those are the ones that are selling to customers. And so I think that's finding those types of partnerships is huge, I think, in the indie comic space.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a grassroots effort.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Hey, Rob, I was curious when you were talking about you had taken your son to the comic book shop and it reignited your interest in comics. What books were out at that time that reignited your interest?
Well, for him, he was really into, the MCU had just kind of started really. So he wanted to read Iron Man. And then he said Spider-Man. And I said, well, which Spider-Man? And of course, he wanted to read Miles. And so we picked that up. But then, of course, the one thing that was I didn't have a ton of interest in those, but the one thing we had a shared interest is Star Wars. And so it was Darth Vader and Star Wars had just started their runs, and we were able to pick those up. And as long as I was paying for the books, I was going to read them as well. And those really is what kind of like kicked it. And I said, oh, well, I get a discount if I get like 2 more books on my pull list. So let me get 2 books for me. And then next thing you know, it's like he eventually tapped out and left. But I go now my it's always trying to keep my pull list in constrained somewhat.
Right. Try not to get it too out of hand. So what books are you reading these days? Which books do you find interesting?
Oh, right now, Ultimate Spider-Man is at one of the ones that's at the top of my list right now, just because as a longtime Spider-Man fan, just to have Peter and MJ back together just tickles my fancy like there's no belief. So that, and then the other book that I get home every week I can't wait to read has been Transformers. I was never a Transformers reader before, but everybody was so hyped on Daniel Warren Johnson, what he did with Do a Power Bomb and Murder Falcon, that I was like, oh, all right, let me give it a shot. And I'm just like blown away how enjoyable it is. And so I've been doing those. Of course, Star Wars titles, Batman and Robin, actually, even though it's out kind of a little bit on the skirts of what's going on in the continuity, has been real fun just for the dynamic. I think that they finally have hit the right stride between Damian and Bruce on how they interact with each other in that series. So I've been finding a lot of joy in that title. Stuff like that. Then I'll pick up some fun stuff here. They're like, I'm excited as all hell. Flash Gordon's back. Yes. So get a chance to read Flash Gordon and Defenders of the Earth when that hits, and then some of these new EC books that are coming out with sci-fi stories and stuff in them. I'm pumped.
Oh yeah, the EC books are coming back. I saw that. Super fun.
Yeah. I've been picking up all the old weird science, trade paperbacks as they've been coming, because I can't. They're expensive to buy the old floppies, but yeah, now that they got their own titles, Dark Horse is relaunching it. It's been fun to check those out.
What do you guys think about those fast mail editions? The facsimiles, they call it.
Oh, the reprints. They're reprints.
Reprints, yeah. With the
they can call
a full cover.
They can call them facsimiles, but they're not by definition.
Yeah, they always have full covers too, so they could justify that, $5 to $10 or $10.
What's great is now DC has it to a science. They release a book with a regular paper cover, it's $5.99. If you get the blank cover, it's $6.99, and a foil cover $7.99. I can't understand yet how I have to pay $1 extra for no art on the cover, but
oh, that's for the potential of getting customized art.
Yeah.
So there you go. For the low price of $1.
There you go. This is now. Yeah, but I do like. I'm a sucker, and I pick up the vast majority of the DC and Marvel facsimile reprints that come out.
Me too.
Mostly because if I have that book, it's slabbed. And I can't, especially at least the Silver and Golden Age ones. The modern facsimiles, no, I'm a hard pass on them. I've got the book, or I don't care about the book. I can read it any number of ways. But the Golden Age and some those older Silver Age books, I'm not gonna. If I get a Fantastic Four #1, I'm not gonna thumb through it. So I'll thumb through a facsimile reprint all day long. When else was I ever going to get a chance to read an Action Comics 1, right? So,
my only gripe with them is I'm Rob. I'm right there with you. I get the classic ones because it's so fun to sit there and physically read a copy. I do wish they would do a somewhat better job on trying to emulate newsprint versus the high gloss page. So I read mostly digitally, and I go back. Because that's just easier it's because of my eyes. The biggest reason why it's just easy to sit there and read. And reading the old, Stanley Jack Kirby X-Men's or something like that digitally, you get like the very high contrast, bright colors. So I'm okay with that. But if I want to pick up a facsimile, I kind of want it to have more of that newsprint feel to it.
A facsimile on newsprint, I'd go straight to midnight, baby.
Yeah, it'd be really cool. But I think it's great for people to have the interest in those old comics. It's really, I think it's basically a no-lose situation. I guess if I was to come up with one other gripe, foil covers are a little bit different, blank covers are a little bit different, but I've seen some that have variant covers on them.
Yes.
What are we even doing at that point?
Those have been mostly, I think those mostly have been on the modern facsimiles, but still. But yeah, no, give me some golden age reprints on newsprint, and then while you're at it, spritz it with some mold spores so I can get that old comic smell. Oh man.
Yeah, no, in fact, it's the digital side of things is where a lot of these facsimiles with variant covers came from, because I think when they reissue the digital drops, they would put variant covers on them because people want that, variant cover from a modern artist for that historic book. But that never really made super sense to me, but I get it. It's definitely one of those things.
Well,
to me,
cool.
I would be like, what's your interpretation of that cover? That would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of feel like the gripe I have with it is that it just feels like the price point is sort of defeating maybe the purpose, and I don't know, maybe it's
No, that's a valid point.
But to me, it feels like I kind of just wish they were $1, maybe $2, and they were just sort of back to the disposable sort of entertainment. You want to read it, get it in a kid's hand, sort of thing. I think that would be better. That would serve the hobby better.
It makes a lot of sense because they don't have any more cost into it other than the printing cost. They already stole the artwork and stories from the creators back in the 40s and 50s, right? So you're not all of a sudden paying their estates money off of those. So yeah, why is it $5.99?
Yeah, you're great on the blank. Like, why not make it $1 or $2 cheaper to help, give artists something great to draw on too at cons? It's a little bit more affordable when they want to supply their own blanks. And yeah, why not?
Man, the corporate overhead, I can't imagine with Marvel and DC's office. If you ever visit them, it's not cheap. But before we transition to another guest, another friend joining us today, Rob, any other plugs? Anything that you would like the audience to know? Anything we could help spread the word for?
I just say this as it comes to Comics Curing Cancer. Our big event this year is going to be October 4th through the 6th. If you can give us a follow on Instagram or Facebook, Comics Curing Cancer. Right now, we're in the midst of our drive to get donated items, graded comic books, raw books that are key issues, original comic art, original sketches, sketch covers, comic book related stuff. That type of stuff's what we're after right now. Donations to come in so we can use them during our event to raise. It's the only way we get to $50,000, right? Is by having these types of items. We're doing okay. We're a little bit behind where I'd like to be honest, as far as some of the donations go. But we do have some cool stuff. Like we've gotten commitments right now from like Chris Campana and Stephanie Levod and Stephen Rowe and Trish Forstner have pledged some pieces to us, which will be cool. But ultimately, that's what we're doing. Just reach out to us if you're interested in making a donation. Everything goes, 100% of the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society. We are an official campaign of them, so we can provide donation receipts, tax deductible. But that's ultimately the big push right now. Just reach out to us on Comics Curing Cancer on Instagram or Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. No, you're doing a great cause.
No, thank you.
I personally have a box packed already, but after this conversation, I feel like I have a few more things I could throw in there. So I'll definitely send it your way. But you're welcome to stay as long as you want to hang out. We're going to welcome our friend Jason Richardson, aka Southern Comic Geek. Woo! We all kind of know each other, right? You guys, yeah, we're all at dinner together. So why I wanted Jason to join today is because obviously the creator team of Zero Ghosts, 2 3 of you guys worked intimately with the Valiant library, and so Jason and I are not just fellow collectors but also Valiant fans. And so I want to kind of geek out a little bit. Oh, this is the recent one. He just picked up a Barry Windsor Smith Archer and Armstrong. Number 2, issue 2, I would say.
Number 2.
Number 2. Yep, I knew it. Number 2, when Turlock actually showed up for the grandmother to take on Archer and Armstrong. But with that said, before we dive into it, Jason, we want to kind of get to know you a little better. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your story, your journey, how you got into collecting, and what you're up to today, that would be great.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I've been, of course, streaming on my channel the entire time, and been lurking and peeking in and out of the chat. So, obviously everything's been going great thus far. So thanks for having me on. I don't know which one's worse, going towards the front of something like this or towards the back of something like this, because I'm certainly not the closer here. But I do, as far as collecting goes, like most people, you collect when you were younger. Life happens, you get out of collecting. And then I found myself, as my youngest daughter was about to be born, getting back into collecting and visiting shows, cons, and then have since kind of evolved into the art realm as well. And so first and foremost, I am a reader. And so most of what I collect, as far as art is concerned, is related to the stories. There has to be a good story behind, or what I feel to be a good story behind the art, in order for me to be interested, which is why I don't collect as many covers unless that cover was like really instrumental behind the story. But most covers nowadays are just pinups more than they are covers. So been an avid reader, read my first comic book in 1983. And I know everybody here just thought I was so much younger than that, but it's been a wild ride ever since. And
awesome. That's a great intro, and I think we can relate a lot on a lot of stuff we read. I'm very similar. Actually, breaks my heart when people say comic art collectors don't even read anymore, or even a lot of slab collectors I'll meet and I'll talk to them about certain stories, and they'll be like, "Oh, what?" Like they'll know who the first appearances are and everything, but they have no idea like what the story's about, right? And so,
yeah, well, and so I found over my tenure on the YouTube side of actually selling comic books, which in my real life job it kind of makes sense, so that I would kind of lean that way. But then I try to sell like sets of books and things of that nature, and people go, "Yeah, is it a first appearance? Is a person about to be in a movie?" It's like, no, it doesn't matter. It's just a good story, Have we devolved in society? I mean, I remember the times that our teachers were telling us that don't read comic books. They'll put holes in your brain and you'll be dumb. And now they want you just to look at a comic book for 5 seconds as opposed to looking at this thing all the time, right?
True. Yeah, and they said my sister-in-law is actually a first grade teacher, and she said 90% of the curriculum are basically in sequential storytelling comics. Wow. And she said it's because parents are just happy that their kids are willing to read because they're so used to the phones. But, with that said, I mean, you had a chance to also read. In fact, I got to commend you. I think you won on the meme factor, right on the highest moment of like Deadpool Wolverine. This meme was going around, and Jason threw this one up, and I just cracked up out loud. And when I reshared it, I had so many people message me going like laughing as well. So you nailed it, and so I want to recognize that. But yeah, any questions for the creator team since you have them here? I know.
Well, the irony in that is when it comes to this YouTube thing, I do zero editing because it was more about a fun factor than it was having another job. And as when it comes to Instagram, I'm almost as a little technical there as well. So when it gave me the option to put that there, I just happened to be reading this, and so I'm like, that would be really cool. So, a blind squirrel can find a nut every now and then. But as far as having the creative team, obviously having skipped in and out of the shows throughout today, I know a lot of great questions have already been asked. It was a fun read, and I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Backer number 8, by the way, and so going to be looking forward to getting my physical copies and all that kind of good stuff with some great art. The challenge, and again, this has already been mentioned, but the challenge in an age where we have so much entertainment at our fingertips, and everybody, because of the MCU, the kind of the bad thing about it is that everybody goes, oh, okay, well, I remember the Hulk from Lou Ferrigno days, or I've always known Spider-Man from the 90s cartoon series, whatever. Is to say, okay, yeah, there's all that, but there's this new thing, and I need you to just focus a little bit of time, because although you all have some great artists on there, the collectability is not quite there for a Kickstarter campaign, or just at least in my opinion, it's not there yet. And so the cover gets a little bit there, but it's the side of the community that's the speculator is not generally there. So you have to have that reader. And so it's kind of the niche of the niche. But I think that the story, at least in this ash can, was interesting enough. The colors were vibrant. The art was great. And the story was interesting enough to say, okay, yeah, I'll not only shell out some of those precious green certificates of appreciation that we call American currency out to back this project, but I'll also I'll also take another gander at reading the rest of it too, because it is challenging in a day when we're so full of and inundated with entertainment at our fingertips, is to say, okay, yeah, because you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want. And so, but it's an interesting project, so I was glad to back it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. Really appreciate that. Justin, Brian, Will, how do you react in the last 45 minutes, an hour? You've been kind of exposed to this whole collector world, because I think often it's kept in silos within the comic community. And so for me, I always just love kind of bringing everyone in the room and kind of getting everyone's thoughts. And I'm sure we've all been exposed to all the different facets of the creative process, production process, the shop's distribution, the sales side, collectability side, the grading side, the art side. I mean, so much, right? What's you guys' reaction to kind of this world of streamers that has kind of, I think, spawned out of the pandemic in a big way, right? I mean, there's a lot. I mean, Mickey, you too, right? I think it was a pandemic, or did you start before? So pandemic, yeah. So pandemic really spawned this new, I think, reinvigoration of the love and passion for the craft. And what's cool about it, it's kind of going around, everyone was on the same page. Like, look, I do this for fun. I don't need a second job. It's something that I'm doing because I'm passionate about this stuff. How do you guys feel? Obviously, Will, you've been around. Will, Brian, I don't know who's been around the longest, but you guys have seen very many iteration of the comic consumers. So what goes through your mind now as you guys hear about this new wave of consumers that's out there, and also distributors in a way? Because instead of Wizard Magazine, we have streamers today that's really talking about these books and sharing the word about it.
It's really interesting because a lot of the talk is it's really similar to a lot of the talk from the early 90s when there was that whole explosion from the speculator market. I think a lot of Marvel books were selling well, and people were just buying up books and holding on to them with the expectation that they're miraculously going to explode in price and value. And I think we're kind of seeing that again because of the movies and stuff like that. It's this whole resurgence of speculation and what's going to sell well, which artwork should we buy, which book should we buy, which character in a book is going to be introduced that could be made into a character for a film and stuff like that. So it's just interesting because it seems to me like everything old is new again with this market.
Justin, Brian?
No, I think that's. I think Will has the thing. It all comes around again. It's also it's interesting. Like I think, and we've talked about this before, and I've rambled on about a length. I think we tend to get a little mono-focused on the direct comic book market. When there is a lot of people reading comics that will never go into a comic book store. That's I always use by comparison, like Urban Animal, my webcomic has 500,000 subscribers. And we've been read like 40 million times. It gets, a weekly audience when we release new issues of like 100,000 people. So for context, we are not a big deal at Webtoon. Like we are solidly mid-list. Like we are good enough to do 155 episodes, but like we are not lighting the world on fire. That's the same thing with when you have Dave Pilkey, releasing 7 million Dogman books. Literally, like that's the print run. Like that is a lot of people reading sequential storytelling, and I think. Yeah, I think one of those things is like from my point of view, I tend to look at it as like, how do we get those people into the kind of comics that we mean when we talk about comics, which is a slightly different animal. Because, a fraction of those people coming into direct market comics as readers would, quintuple, multiple the size of the readership in the industry, which would be good for all of us. So that's the sort of thing I tend to think about. When it comes to stuff like collecting and stuff, like it's just such an alien thing to me. Like, and I absolutely don't mean that as a judgment. Like, I just don't collect things. So like it's like one of those, like, it's interesting. It's interesting to me in the way that people being passionate about things is always interesting, but it's like somebody trying to be like, this is the best Yuvian throat singing that I've ever heard. I'm like, I have no context for evaluating any of this because it's just not what I do. But it is interesting. Like, it's kind of fascinating to me. The closest I get to that is like there's a couple of issues that were important to me as a kid that I would probably buy again. Like there's a Alan Davis X-Men that's like Wolverine versus Sabretooth that I would probably pick up. And as a matter of fact, if I had extra money, I might even go for the original art if it were floating around somewhere. You know what I mean? Because it has real relevance to me as a thing. But like beyond that, like I was just like, I'm glad people were into it, but like it's not my deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen an Alan Moore piece from that, but yeah, go for it, Mickey.
No, I was gonna say I don't know if Brian has thoughts, but I was just gonna respond.
No, go ahead.
No, I think it's interesting because, like, I just feel, and I think one of the hard things here is I don't know if anyone really has the data, the sales data, the metrics. Like, how many readers are there? I mean, I know Justin on Webtoons, but they read, but yeah, like, what's the crossover of like people that are in direct market? And I wonder, is Webtoons also very big overseas as well? I imagine. Like
massively.
Yeah. So I think there's probably
my statistics are granular enough that I can tell you how much of that comes from the US and how much it doesn't. Like, but like Webtoons, specifically the company Webtoons, not just a generic term for that, essentially is the Korean comic book market, even though manhwa exists. Like they are a big deal in a way that would be hard to describe in American terms. And you can actually see some of that, right? Like even in the US, like there are a bunch of Netflix shows, Korean Netflix shows that are in fact based on line Webtoon comic books and stuff that are there now. Like Sweet Home is the one that people think of, but like actually like subtly, like if you're paying attention to the credits, you're like, oh, okay. So like they are to some extent like the MCU of Korea in some regards, like in terms of like kind of the cultural scope of it. And like The question mark of like how much of that overlap there is a good one. And no, I don't think anyone actually knows.
Yeah, I don't think anyone actually knows either. And it's interesting you say that because I've done a lot of writing for Riot Games. They make like League of Legends stuff. But so they're a very interesting company when I've been giving their analytics and stuff to see how much of a Western and Eastern audience it is. Like, even though it's big in the West, it's like, oh, wow. Like the audience in Korea and China is so much larger. It just dwarfs anything that we get over here. But what I think is interesting is, and maybe this has always been true from a marketing standpoint, but I think it's just really hard to sell craft and content of a story nowadays because there's so much noise and there's so many entertainment fields that I think you have to either sell the speculation of like, hey, this is the next big project that's going to be turned into the next Walking Dead, or it's going to have the video game. And so people will give it a chance. And then after they give it a chance because they think they're going to get rich, they read it and they're like, oh, wait, it's actually really good. And then they get invested. Or they're invested in the people behind it. Like, I just like Brian, so I'm going to buy anything Brian draws, so cool. And then it happens to be a good story. So yeah, it's these like other marketing things that you have to kind of push first to get people on board. And it's almost like the story is almost second fiddle in that way. But it not in a negative way. It's just that like it's the same thing. It's like there's so many great shows on Netflix, but it's like, what is actually going to make you hit play? And it's like usually it's
no. I think that's absolutely right, and I think part of it is that we have sort of lost our man. I want a better term for this. I'm going to say cultural gatekeepers, but like it's not the gatekeeping aspect of it, but like. I know I've talked with Carl in the past about like how like, man, I found a lot of cool ass comics from reading Wizard comics. You know what I mean? Like that's where I came across 100 Bullets for the first time, which is one of my favorite series ever and that kind of stuff. But it's the same way with like, if you look back to 25, 30 years ago, you had stuff like Entertainment Weekly and like New York Times book section and stuff. And those things still exist, but like they don't have the sort of like cultural imprimatur that they once did. So we're a lot more fractured about what is basically we don't have as many tastemakers as we did. Like we have algorithms now that kind of do it. Like whereas and comics, I think particularly has suffered from that. Like in the sense of like, Wizard is long gone. Comic book resources is long since to be anything relevant. There's no Warren Ellis forum now, you know what I mean, that I'm aware of that like is like a nexus point for taste making and being like, hey, this is a cool thing, you know what I mean? Like I think YouTube and Twitch and stuff can be that. I don't know that there is something that is quite doing that. Like I think I'm aware of one or two channels that seem to be trying, and they're doing well, but like it's just a matter of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I actually think you're right. Like honestly, a lot of what I'm doing, just personally moving forward, is based on forming a kind of parasocial relationship with people to basically get them into my work, because like that's how you get reach, right? Like if I can like have a successful-ish like YouTube channel, like, then that's going to be able to funnel people into my actual work in a way that it is difficult to do with the work first. You know what I mean? It'd be great to just be a hermit in the woods, which I am, but like, more and just be like, here's some cool shit, read it. But like that is by and large not the world we exist in.
Yeah, there's just too much noise. Like the saying, the cream rises to the top. It's like, it's true, but not if the coffee cup is so big that, you're going to need a hell of a lot of cream for it to actually break through.
So big. And the fact that algorithm does steer you towards certain things, and then everybody's trying to get the clicks. So they all try to tailor their stuff in the same, oh, well, this did well, so let me create my stuff like that instead of actually doing something different and unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely heavily dictated by algorithm. I work in the film business, and recently I was exposed to, kind of how Netflix think about onboarding new features, and it's completely transformed the way I think about producing a movie. There's so much more data, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I think it's one part of me is just so like mesmerized and like enlightened. The other half of me is kind of like questioning, like, wait, all the stuff I've learned all these years, like, does that not matter anymore? I think the right answer is like the Venn diagram is like some a bit of both, but I do feel like it's really important to be attentive to that. It's funny too, like Brian, you not having an answer, I almost had a little bit of a flashback because when we asked Sean Chen a very similar question in our stream, he paused for a little bit and he like chuckled and he says, "I just draw." Like no response to it. And so I thought, which was really cool, by the way, because one thing we've learned, at least on socials, is we've had a number of streams with all the team members, and then one of the really popular ones was when Brian's drawing or we're showing him drawing, he's talking about it, and then Will is coloring, and he's not. So the craft of it all, I think, really does appeal to people and does capture attention because not everyone can do that. Like you guys really you're speaking a language that we understand, but not many of us can do. And so I think that in itself is super powerful. And I know, Rob, you're need to transition, and we have another guest coming in, which we'll welcome as we wrap the hour. But Rob, thanks for everything once again.
Thank you. Appreciate you
we'll
guys. Great
send...
work. I can't wait to read more.
Awesome. Thanks
Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
And let's welcome Justin. Justin got his short box T-shirt on, and he has his presence at cons for sure, and he's been around, and so definitely want to welcome Justin. But before that, real quick, Justin, if you don't mind, we're gonna just check on our Kickstarter. We're at 75 backers day one. We are 13,006, so about 130%. Thank you everyone for the support. Totally floored. We know it's kind of a crazy week in the world of macroeconomics, but you guys being open to being part of this project means a lot to us. We have a whole month of this campaign to go, so it's just the beginning. But with that said, I want to also introduce Justin, if you don't mind, actually, to our audience who's watching today. We know you, but maybe great for everyone else to get to know you a little bit as well. So why don't you jump in and talk a little bit about your journey and kind of how you came to be into this whole comic book culture world.
Wow. All right. I've been collecting comics and toys since junior high school, I think. And I got out of it for a little while in college and then met the wife and we started going to conventions together. And then we just kind of spiraled and snowballed from there. We've just been creating a great network of people, meeting tons of new friends. We do like a bunch of panels at conventions. We cosplay. We just like to be active in the community.
And then when you met your wife, Michelle, were you guys both already into this stuff, or just happened to be on stuff, or you got her into it, or the other way around?
No, we were actually both into it, but we didn't know until one of our first dates was actually the first Iron Man movie. So we always joke that our relationship spans the entire MCU. But we used to go on little like toy hunting dates when we started dating. We'd do our little loop around. We'd hit up like Walmart, Target, a couple comic shops, and that'd just be like our weekend thing to do. And then, like I said, it just kind of spiraled from there.
That's awesome. So I wish Sarah would be here, but she kind of comes from your world and your segment. And why we want to do this stream today and continue building these get-togethers virtually is because we recognize like the source material, comic books, provide an avenue for adaptation, not just film, not just the comic books themselves, not just the business that built from them, not just the art, but also individuals like yourself and Sarah and your wife, Michelle, who loves taking this stuff and embracing and becoming it, right? And so, as you kind of, and honestly, a lot of folks don't even read anymore. They just dress up as characters that they like looking at. And so, but you still read. And so with the creator team here today, and we have our other friends here, Jason, Bronze, any thoughts or feedback for Zero Ghost as a whole? Because today's the big day, is our day one, and we're launching, and we would love any feedback or thoughts. And if you have any questions for the creator team, feel free to shoot.
Well, I had a chance to read the first issue, the preview issue, and the art is just fantastic. It's so good. Some of these pages I was looking at, I was like, oh, this is like cover quality for an internal page. I was just blown away by the art and the story too. That's exactly down mine and my wife's lane. It's like I like the different like families / gangs, and they're each routed in like a specific specialty or power, and then it even mixes in some of the supernatural. So it's kind of right down our alley. I love the story so far. I've only got to read the first one, but it was great. Can't wait to pick up the next two.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Any reaction to that, Brian, Justin? Obviously, I think it'd be cool one day if Justin and Michelle cosplay as some of the characters in Zero Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Carl and Kira. But I just wanted to say thank you for the compliment on the inside pages. The fact that you said that they were like cover quality, that's what we're striving for. Like what you see on the outside should be equal to what you see on the inside. So I'm glad that you said that. So thank you so much, Justin. Appreciate that.
I have some other friends who do internal art also, and it takes them like days to do a page. So I can only imagine how long it takes to do that type of quality for the entire book.
Oh yeah, I won't even bring that up.
Yeah. It's a passion for it.
So one of the
How'd
things
you guys come up? How'd you guys come up with the story? It's kind of like a mix of a bunch of different things we've seen.
Oh, that is literally what happened. I was looking at stuff that I just thought was cool, and wanted to do more of like 90s comics and John Woo movies and John Wick and magic and all that kind of stuff. So, which is how most of my projects go. There's just some kind of stew of like all the things I think would be fun, because I'm mostly trying to entertain myself at first. So
It is. I feel like a lot of times when we entertain ourselves, and it makes, kind of like the conversation kind of kicking off this morning with Mannix, was he wants to just make himself laugh and make it fun. And when you see him doing that and he basically is successful delivering that, we actually feel like he's having fun from his works as well. And so I do feel like there's a lot to that, when we kind of do the best for ourselves.
I definitely enjoy or I appreciate, the approach that is, or let me backtrack. I think there's been so much of a push in a lot of storytelling to do, a lot of like deconstruction, or like to be like, okay, how do we make this, yes, we've seen that before, but how do we, completely change it and make it shocking this time? And I actually think that there's something really refreshing about just giving the story that you want to do or that you grew up liking and just giving it your version of it. And by just the nature of you doing your version of it, it's going to feel fresh, And so that's what I really enjoy that, just kind of a classic tale of vengeance, but you guys putting your own stamp on it makes it feel completely brand new, but familiar as well in a good way.
Well, I mean, I worked in the music industry for many years, and one of the things I learned, as I dove into it, was this idea of sampling. And then I realized there's like, nothing new under the sun, because after a while, like sitting in the studio with producers, you're realizing all these guys are just like master dictionaries of all the sounds of all the different music and songs. And they basically remix all the hits in the past into its new form. And why the major record labels win is because they own all those old libraries, and they hold the rights to using those proven tones again. And so there's only so many. It's almost like an algorithm that's a little bit more organic, but I do feel like there's nothing new under the sun. I think it's really about reinterpreting existing hits to fit the new generation. And those of us who know some of the hits better, then we'll kind of recognize it. And at the same time, there's this level of familiarity. But with that said, we're at top of the hour again. And Bronze, I know you got to run. Thank you so much for streaming with us. And it's been awesome to have you here. Any other thoughts for the viewers before you head out?
Yeah, so I just want to say, like I said earlier, I got a chance to read about the first half of the story so far, and I'm hooked. I can't wait to go finish it. And that's the kind of thing that I like to see is good new story, great new art. It's a new world that we're building, so that's really cool. So I am excited to see how this campaign goes. Hey, we haven't planned anything for this yet, but at some point, if the creative team wants to come on and talk a little bit more about it, maybe a little bit down the road in the campaign, I'd love to talk to you guys some more about it. Like Justin, you mentioned Jim Butcher earlier, for example. Like I would love to talk to you about some Dresden Files, stuff like that. There's lots of good stuff we can talk about. I'm excited about this book, and I'm going to go back it after I'm off here. So we got to go check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Bronze. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Let's take the time to welcome Janie and Max. What's up, guys?
Hey,
what's up? How y'all doing?
Good. The homie. So this is awesome right now. This is how we're going to close the show today. We literally have representatives from every community, from the collector community to kind of like the slab vintage collecting community. We have the cosplayer community. We have our creator team. And then we have our digital partners community at Vivi. And you guys have a great story. I would love for you guys to kind of share your story first before we dive in. And then let me kind of switch this up from here. There we go. Okay, so welcome, Max and Jenny. Would love for you guys to share your story and how you guys came about your collecting journey, because I think your collecting journey is unique and a little different than a lot of folks that's been here today so far. And then we'll bring you back on with the panel, and then we'll kind of close this thing out strong. So what's up, homies?
What's up, man?
What's up? First, are you my soulmate?
You go ahead.
No, first, thank you so much for having us on, Carl, and hi to everybody in the panel. I definitely do have a unique story. Are you okay if I go first, baby?
Yeah.
So Max introduced me to Vivi, which is Vivi Digital Collectibles, in 2021. Right, baby? And we started collecting our digital collectibles from different IPs. Then we got comic books, and Max and I, at that time, we had a small YouTube channel. We just did it to have fun, to connect with the community, to kind of spread that Vivi love and fun. We started hunting for these comic books that were on Vivi digitally, but went to go look for them physically. And sometimes we didn't have any luck, but the times that we did, it was so exciting because we're like, oh my gosh, we own this digitally and we get to have it physically. And that's really where I love Vivi and I love collecting digitally, but that's what sparked my physical collecting as well. And I have to be honest with you, nobody hate me. For a long time, I was just collecting for the covers. Like the art really, if it's, depending different artists, they really speak to me. If I like the colors or the way that the characters look, I will buy them, collect them, put them on our wall. I'm, as y'all know, I'm a big Peach Momoko fan. So now I have a collection of comic books that I would have never imagined I would be collecting, or even collecting like toys or art collectibles. Vivi just kind of like opened this whole new world for me. So that's my story. And I have to be honest and say that Zero Ghosts is the second comic book that I've read ever in my life. And I just want to put that out there, and then I'll say what I thought about it so you can say your collecting journey.
So my collecting journey started a little bit earlier than hers because I got
earlier.
Well, I was already a collector. I just didn't call myself that. But once Vivi happened, it was just all hands on deck. Like it was full blown. Like I had to have everything. And then the fact that what I was collecting digitally existed out in the real world, I just naturally had to go get it, right? We had to go hunt for it. And I think the thrill of the hunt, I think what what got us really into collecting is the thrill of the hunt together. Like it was such a celebration whenever we found that comic book that was in our app, in physical, or when we found that statue that was in our app. And we're forever grateful to just digital and collecting in general, because it's given us a new avenue to hang out. A new passion together to just have fun. And that's what we do. We just love to have fun. And we went from not knowing much about comic books, and now we're on a comic book stream with you guys. So we're just like,
blows our minds. Like one day we hope to get on the level of Justin and Michelle, because the cosplaying will be a whole different avenue, but I'm open to it. But they have done this journey for a long time, and it's really cool. And we're a couple having fun.
we're infinitely grateful to collecting and grateful for you guys having this on. So thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
It's awesome. Welcome, guys. No, it says a lot. I think for us, this day was heavily curated with just good people. And everyone comes from the industry from a different perspective and have a different perspective on collecting as a whole. And I think today is really about celebrating the guys and their launch of Zero Goes, but also getting to know each other as a community. And so, I mean, first of all, that's freaking awesome that this is the second comic you've read, and obviously, oh my gosh, we're gonna hit 14 while you guys are on. That's gonna be crazy.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So yeah, we got 4 more backers, and so yeah, we obviously kind of just catch people up. During San Diego Comic Con, during that promo, we had a chance to partner with the team at Vivi, and we actually dropped Zero Ghost #1 that Saturday morning. I think about 1,500 copies sold in the first hour, and then we've been kind of like slowly selling. I think we're about 100 or so left of editions, and that world is very different than like the physical comic collecting world that I spend a lot of time in. And so it's really cool. Also, like on Thursday, we had the opportunity to come hang out with the VV fam, watching Deadpool, and I think Mickey was there as well, and just saw the energy, man. There was like a lot of love and interest and true support across the board. And so yeah, I just want to say thank you for that support, and we're loving the community thus far, just seeing how you guys' energy and vibe. So with that said, this being your second comic, and Jay, don't feel bad. A lot of people don't read anymore. That was one of the big topics today, where even people who used to read don't even read that much anymore. They just collect the art, they collect the slabs, and reading Zero Goes as like your #2 comic book. I think for me, I'll speak for the guys. It's an honor. That's awesome. But what's your reaction to it all? And since you have the creator team here today, you've met Brian already. Max, Janie, you both met Brian. But any questions for the guys and any thoughts and feedback?
I do have a question, but I will say first, before San Diego Comic Con, we have like this blog, and we got a little outline of like what Zero Ghost is about. And I was already kind of drawn to it because of the magical side to it. And I was like, okay, like I'm very into like magic and like fantasy. I like that aspect of the comic book. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this. Then I have to really, really like shout you out, Carl and Brian and Mickey and Mannix. Like, you're so right. When you have like a good group of people, good energy, it just draws you even more to the project, to the story. So I really read it because of y'all. So I loved it. It took me a little bit. Again, I'm not a comic book reader, so I had to go like back and forth. The cool thing about it was I had it in my app, so I didn't have to bring like my physical copy on the airplane or anything. So I just kept going back and forth. The art. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm with Justin. That art could truly be the cover. The first page is like when she's in that fight, and then when she like opens her eye and her eye is like really like, oh shoot, and there's like things hanging from the ceiling. I was like, oh my gosh. And then the crash scene, all the art was incredible. And I have so many more questions. I'm ready to read like the next one. I want to know where this story goes. Like I need more, right? But I don't know if you wanted to.
No, go finish the story. Go ahead.
My question is, which I'm very happy about this. I'm very excited about this. I think it's really cool. But what was the reasoning for having a girl? And not just like a girl or a young woman, but she's like petite. If you would see her like out in the street, you'd probably think like she wouldn't hurt a fly, but she's really like, I don't know if we could say bad words on this stream, but she's a baddie. So
oh shit, real quick, I just said a bad word, but we just had 14K, guys.
Awesome.
Awesome, guys. Congrats.
All right, back to the program. Sorry about that.
No problem. No, I just think she's so cool. It actually popped in my head like, man, could I cosplay as her? Because she's like really cool. I just need to cut my hair short and get some bangs. But yeah, so what was the reasoning for having a girl?
Honestly, I thought it would be cool. And it was partly, the other part of that is, and it kind of goes in with her kind of visual aesthetic too, is that because she is young and she's a girl and she's small, people will tend to underestimate her, which I just think makes her a more interesting sort of person to follow through this sort of thing. It's one thing when, you know, Keanu Reeves is kicking everybody's ass. It's another thing when a 5 foot tall girl is doing it. So I just thought it would be a more fun way to do it than if she were like a dude. So
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm grateful for that because it's like a character, like let's say not like a super popular character, but a character that I can now like relate to, right? It doesn't have to be like the big names. Like now Kira, and it's Kira, right?
It is.
Kira, like now I'm like, hey, that's my girl. Like I can look up to her, like I can connect with her. So thank you for doing that. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah.
I just want to shout out the range of emotions that I went through. Like as I'm turning the pages, like we started off with like a practice battle scene, and then there was a car chase, and then there was a sacrifice scene, and then there was people getting split in half. It's like a whole bunch of things happened in like 20 minutes of me reading this, and it's like I enjoyed the ride. You know, it was a fun ride, and it was, you know, it was action packed the whole way. There was never really like a dull moment where I'm like, all right, this is getting kind of not everything had purpose and intention the whole way through.
Intention.
Yeah.
That is such a great word, babe, because like now I need to read the next one.
Yeah.
I need to have the next one, please, because the intention behind it was just so beautiful. I say beautiful because like the story and the art, but not just beautiful because I don't want it to sound like, oh, it's a beautiful flower, but like beautiful and like really freaking cool, like at the same time, like rock and roll, you know? So I loved it, guys. I really did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll say this about the book. We pack a lot into 28 pages. So
Yes, you did.
Yes, you did. You did. And even at that, packing in so much, it left me wanting to know more about the story, more about the characters, like what happened, what's next, who is this, what is it, the red character, Shrike. Okay, I'm trying to make sure not to mispronounce any, because I really like this book, guys, like, and I really value it, so I don't want to mess up the names, but yeah, like what's next for them? Like what's the next thing? Is she just gonna go and like kill everybody at sight? You know, like, so it's, yeah, I can ramble, sorry.
It's okay. The filibuster's over.
I don't want to, it's not a filibuster. I just really appreciated the story.
Yeah.
I really, really did. And I was after reading the story, I just got even more excited for the stream.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I can't wait to talk to all of y'all about it, because we're all, you know, here for a reason, right? Because we like the story and just want to talk about it and share it with everybody.
Exactly. No, it's important, I think, and that's also why, like, I want you guys to come on. You guys have just amazing energy, and you guys come from a whole new perspective. Because when I got to know VV a little bit more, and I met some of the community members, one thing I learned is many people actually weren't even comic book collectors growing up. They actually was exposed to comics through Vivi, and then it brought them into comic book shops and conventions, and that's kind of
100%.
where they buy comics. So in a way, like I think as much as often, traditionalists, I would say maybe would look at it and be like, oh, it's kind of a bad thing. It's taking away whatever. I feel like it's actually bringing more people into the marketplace and should be embraced. And so how do you guys think about that? Do you guys ever have those kind of debates or like those type of
Yes.
discussions?
So many times when we would go to our physical comic shops looking for these comics that we have on our app, we would try to show them like our digital collection, and they would scoff at it like, oh, that's not the real thing. It would kind of be met with a little bit of like tension, as in they weren't fully on board. But in reality, like these digital collectibles are the reason we were here. So back to your point, like I really do think there's a synergy there that I think should kind of be met with a little bit more grace. I think because there's a lot of us that are going to comic book shops because of digital collecting. So
I would have never imagined myself going into a comic book shop if it wasn't for my digital collection. Like that door wouldn't have been open. So I feel, and now I'm buying physical comics. I have digital comics, but I'm buying a lot of physical comics. I'm getting them graded. I'm getting them signed. I'm meeting artists. That's probably my favorite part. Meeting artists and the people behind this story, the team, like connecting with these humans is like such a great
Brian.
Yeah, Brian, we had such a great conversation, and that we were so grateful for that conversation and getting to talk to you, getting to know you. That to me is, you have a comic book that you have a story, but when you can connect it to human connections, it's an even bigger story, a memory, right? So I understand when people are, like they're very set in their ways, but just having a little bit of openness can bring a lot of other people together. And I think that we can be in the same space, in the same container, right? And appreciate each other for
like the physical comic book shops don't have to lose for digital to win. Like both can win. It's both possible, and I think that really needs to, I don't know, be understood a little bit better. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, Justin, you collect more than just comics. You collect physical items as well. Do you collect digital Funkos? Because I know that's a thing as well, like the digital toys, digital kind of statues. I mean, what's your perspective on that? And I want to get to Swaggle on his thoughts on a few things.
So we never got into collecting digital, I guess, assets other than comics. But most of the digital comics we do collect are to actually read, because we grew up collecting the physical toys and the physical books. So we started out going into the shops and getting our books, and we still go in weekly. She'll still come home with a stack of books every week, and we don't even read majority of them. I think she just buys for the covers mostly.
Interesting.
Sounds
Yeah,
right.
we have an extremely large
don't
collection.
feel bad. It's like that's normal.
Yeah. So we have a lot of books. We have a lot of slabs. We do have a bunch on display, but for the most part, our digital collecting is basically kept to reading the books, or some of the books that we have. You get the Marvel app. You'll scan the code, and then you can read it, and then just put the book away and not have to worry about messing it up.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to ask Mickey next was, I think that makes sense. I'm the same way. I read digitally and I collect physically. So a lot of times if I read something I really like it, I'll feel bad and I'll go to the comic shop and buy the physical. And so that's and they're usually now, at least the shop I go to, are board and bagged, and so I kind of just throw it into my box and that's it. But Mickey, like one kind of a user experience that Jamie highlighted was through Vivi. It brought them into physical shops. Then now she's grading the stuff that she's buying. That goes right into your territory. Like, has there ever been conversations in your world about how digital impacts graded books, etc.? Because we had a conversation about how, man, like the graded book world, we're a little worried about the future of it because it's aging and often aren't as exciting and stuff. Could be a challenge. And how do we bring some of that energy back? And I feel like we just kind of witnessed that right now.
Yeah, I agree. I just went on a nature hike and ranted about this for like 20 minutes on my channel. No, but I think I think it's so clear that a lot of comic stores, Janie, you said it, where they're kind of stuck in their ways, and I think that they're sort of waiting for, well, just Brian and Will and Justin just write better Star Wars, and then I'll buy it. And it's like, nah, I don't think so. I think we live in a different world, where you have to kind of cater to the audience that is not really used to buying physical anymore. Kind of have to like rope them in through different areas. And so I think VV has been a positive in that way. It's brought a lot of people into comic collecting. And I think that there just needs to be, I mean, this whole stream is that, and how, Carl, you're kind of bringing in people from different walks of life, or I should say nerd culture walks of life, different aspects of the con floor, and you have to think of more ways for everyone to kind of work hand in hand with each other. And this is how I always felt about, like, I had a conversation with Sean Chen when Evermind came out, and he was just saying, we had the whole conversation about collectors, and he's like, why would anyone want my art? I don't get that. And it's like, yeah, it's like, you should try to understand it, actually, because it's such a big part of it. And I think if you understood the collector mindset as a creator, or a retailer understood a creator's mindset, or vice versa, and all these people kind of understood it a little better, I think you can probably think of new ways to get to new people. Because there's a lot of people that want to read comic books, or even like Justin, you were saying, it's like, what is it? There's so many people on Webtoons, and they would probably like Zero Ghosts, but it's just like not on their platform, or it's not in their lane. So it's not so much like, oh, we'll just write a better Zero Ghost and all of a sudden they'll find it. It's like, no, I think that there's just some disconnect in how they're actually finding it.
Yeah, it's true, because in a way, Webtoons is digital comics. You don't have the collectability of it, but I think to me, is more like digital periodicals in a way. And when we say like 24/7 comics were digital first, I actually believe in not just the digital aspect of things, but also the ability to reach the physical. So Kickstarter just becomes like a really powerful platform when it comes to launching a new book, because we could also introduce folks who are digital native to it at the same time, get you something in your house physically. And yeah, I think that's kind of why we're really exploring what our model is going to look and feel like as we release more titles. All right, what else? Any other thoughts? I mean, we're kind of landing the stream. We're 8.5 hours planned, and we have a handful of minutes left. Man, I can't believe we made it through today, and everyone is still alive.
Congratulations, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and really like energizing us and giving us your insights, and even just your excitement about the book is such encouragement, because I do feel like I'm a fan first, and every one of these guys, I'm a fan first before I started working with them. And when they put out the product and was given the room and space to do what they do, I feel like they did deliver the best work. And honestly, like, to me, this book is going to be career defining, and we just got to get the word out. And I think as a fan, it makes me happy that others are also on the same page, so it doesn't make me question my taste, because I do feel like there's something great and deserves to be spread out. And so, yeah, I think it's been great, even the audience being here today, chatting up all day and letting us know how they feel. Why don't we just kind of go around and kind of wrap up the day with any final thoughts and words, anything you're working on, where people can find you guys. We'll start with, how about last to beginning? So Omi Homies, why don't you guys kick us off on kind of closing out the day and where people can find you, etc.
Okay, well, first and foremost, congratulations to you guys for hitting 14K. Amazing.
Yay.
Heavy
Super
congratulations.
happy about that.
Second, we're super grateful that you guys had us on your show and just embrace us as, you know, the collectors that we are. We're still having trouble calling ourselves collectors too, you know, like officially compared to like some of the collectors that we've seen in the world. But we're, you know, we're doing our thing and having fun. So yeah. And we do our thing and have fun on our YouTube channel. We're on Twitter as well. Pretty much all the socials. We're the Omi Homies. If you want to just have fun with us, shoot us a follow, and we'd love for you to check out our content.
And lastly, I mean, how cool is Kira? Look at her. Like, she is so freaking cool. Please go share Zero Ghost with your friends and just read the story. You will not be sorry. You will not be sorry.
I mean, it's one of those, like, the holy trinity, right? You have amazing artwork, you have an amazing team, and you have an amazing story. Like, there's chef's kiss.
Man, one of the things I love more than collecting coming out of these cons is relationships. And I can say you guys are one of the relationship highlights coming out of San Diego Comic Con. So thank you for making time to be with us today. And Justin, we've been rolling together for a while now. So awesome seeing you grow in your panels. I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger and, you know, more attention. So where can people find you? And any last words to close us out today?
Let's see. We got a bunch of things coming up. We're heading to Vegas this weekend, doing a little mini show, Amazing Las Vegas. After that, got a little break, and then we got LA Comic Con. Got my panel planned for that one too. So we'll see how that goes. And then we're taking a little break until next year. After that, we'll take the next couple months off. Yeah, if you want to give us a follow, I'm at JT_Otero, and my wife's Michelle Wafilo.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin. And let me shout out Jeff Wang as well. This guy's been a soldier in our chat all day, dropping great questions. I feel like we need to have him on as a co-host next time.
I was going to say, we're still holding our breath that Justin makes it to New York Comic Con. So we'll see. We'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Come on, Justin.
We gotta go. We gotta go. We all gotta be there. Actually, Mickey, why don't you go because you did the video. Don't forget, guys, the Zero Ghost video was produced, directed, cut by Mickey himself. So, Mickey, let's close us out.
Yeah, what a stream. What a day. Congratulations to 24/7 and the creative team for Zero Ghost. I think you guys got a great, successful book on your hands. Can't wait to see where it goes from here. Thanks to everyone in the chat for hanging out today. It's been fun. As for me, I don't know, Swaggle my YouTube. If you guys want to hear more about what's happening in the comic book YouTube space, I cover a lot of topics within that. And I have my comic series, issues 2 and 3, that'll come out in a couple months. I have to fulfill it in Kickstarter. And maybe I'll be in New York with Carl, rolling it out. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, just maybe. Just maybe. Thanks, Mickey. All right, well.
Wow. Well, I just want to say, guys, this has been an amazing experience. Working on this project has really, I feel like I've evolved so much from working with you guys and working on this project. And I just want to say how appreciative I am of this opportunity, how appreciative I am of all the fans, all the backers, anyone who's expressed interest in this project. I think it's a project that we all feel very passionate about. We put our heart and our souls into it. And I think it's really going to show in the final product. And I think anyone who picks it up is definitely going to get a kick out of it. You got a lot of choices in comics these days, but hopefully you pick this one up and you fall in love with it the way we fell in love working on it.
Thank you, Will. Your colors definitely stood out, and thank you for putting all that time and effort into it. Brian?
I'm just super thankful everyone who stopped by today, everyone took time out of their day to be a guest, to watch the stream, to back our book. 2 hard years of work. It's finally coming out. People are finally going to see it, and I'm just excited that everyone's going to see the adventures of Kira Kane and this whole world that the creative team has developed. It's an exciting book, fast-paced, high energy. So I hope you guys love it. Hope you guys love it as much as we enjoyed making it.
Thank you, Brian. Justin, last but not least.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for showing up today, and especially for backing the book. Like everyone has said, we really enjoyed making it, and we really love it. So I hope you guys enjoy it too. You can find me eventually, kind of, at deathercomics.com and the sort of Deather Comics things on the interwebs. Or you can just look at Justin Jordan Comics on Instagram, where you will get occasional photos of me and my cat.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody. It was a great day. 8.5 hours. Mickey, thanks for co-hosting the stream as well. Really appreciate you opening up the audience. I think we're just in this kind of shared universe where we want to bring everyone together. And so 24/7 Comics fan, thank you so much for helping and all the backers out there. We really appreciate this first day. I think it was a huge accomplishment for us to hit the 81 backers at the 14K level. And so we got 29 more days to go. So this is just the beginning. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys soon.
I got to go put my order in.
There we go.